All right, good evening, everybody. I'm a little later than I wanted to be, but I had a bunch of stuff that I needed to get out of the way. So, just for the benefit of those of you who are wondering where I was on Monday, because I really did not have a good way of communicating this, there was a massive internet outage in Canada. So, without going into too much at the start, Canada is. So I've heard an account that says that there are 5 major telecom players. In practice, I think there's actually only 3 major national players, and in fact, one of them wants to buy one of the more regional ones. But in any case, again, this is not going to give like a huge backstory to this because chances are most of you have already heard of this. But basically, one of them went down, and what they have claimed is that basically it was a maintenance update. And which, I mean, that is astonishing if that's actually what took it down. But in any case, as of I think about 4 in the morning on Friday, not just my internet, but my phone was knocked out as well. And we're talking to a level where if I had needed to call 911, I actually wouldn't have been able to. We're talking like a complete outage. And it lasted more than 24 hours. I was more or less actually out for 2 days. I know that it seems like they got things under control the next day, but certainly for me, I definitely didn't have internet access for quite a bit longer after that. And I'm actually still seeing some of the effects. So I've noticed that a lot of the stuff that I try to do on Steam, a few websites aren't loading in. And I mean, there's always, like, the one thing that everybody keeps suggesting is, well, just reset the cache. And then, like, I go in and the instructions are, like, 5 years old and there isn't that option anymore. Hey, Elgrins, how you doing? Which has made it really complicated to just try and get things working again. But as far as streaming is concerned, I'm back. I apologize for not giving better notice. I did eventually kind of manage to find somewhere in terms of... There's my city has a couple of public Wi-Fi sections, so there's like a community center not that far away from where I live. So I kind of walked out and hopped on some internet there for a little while. It's a trouble. It's a tricky one though, right? Because like generally, if you're walking around and there's like a whole bunch of locked internet hotspots, and then there's like this one thing which says like free public Wi-Fi. Generally, you're not going to assume that that's the most legitimate source, right? But in this case, like the city does actually put up some hotspots, which was helpful in this case here. But again, this is one of these cases where I try not to, like I'll be late for streaming for sure. And I try to keep that to a minimum, but I know I often fail. But every once in a while, there's going to be something that I just simply cannot deal with if I'm out of town. Hello, Vanguard Master. How you doing? And Olaf, good to see you too. I'm sorry it's a tea day today. I've actually been having some trouble getting to bed at a decent hour, so I'm not even having caffeinated tea. It's chamomile and citrus. I hope the Kickstarter's treating you well. I will confess I haven't checked it out recently. Oh, that's great that you're continuing to work on the game. Not that I think you wouldn't, but I definitely know there's a couple of Kickstarters I really wanted to see work, and they put it up, and basically they do maybe once every couple of weeks for updates and such. And I couldn't even tell if they were. I'm sure they were working on the game. Like I was excited about it for a reason, but it was really just hard to see people doing anything with it. So. Kickstarter will be a bust, do you think? But you're selling your apartment to keep us afloat until you can figure out something else. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Take care of yourself, Vanguard, right? The one thing, especially if the Kickstarter doesn't go through, that may be a signal from the market in terms of where it's not working out. So the one thing is that I also don't want to discourage people because I think you're going to be working on something that means a lot to you. And it's always a little dangerous I think you're going to hear a lot of people kind of telling you, don't do something you're passionate about. On the other hand, I also think that it's important to just be kind of careful with people. Like The only thing that I will just tell you is there's a very famous idea in economics, and it's obviously a fallacy too in terms of the sunk cost fallacy. But the idea of sort of recovering what was put in by putting more inside of it. And the only thing is that I hope you don't put more than sort of you're willing to put into on this endeavor. But on the other hand too, right? I have no intention of like nannying you either, because you can make your own decisions for yourself and see where it's going. But just be careful, right? But I will tell you, that's really good to hear that you are still working on something, even even in the face of the Kickstarter maybe not getting you what you needed. So I also want to just take a second here and say good on you for continuing to like plug at something that's not in the fun moment anymore. But I also wanted to keep on the financial side of things. I definitely wanted to, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. There's always going to be another opportunity to do another game. It's a little confusing because you got a lot of verbal support for the idea, but people are hesitant to support financially. I think things like Chronicles of Illyria didn't help with the Kickstarter idea, and people are tired of backing things without proven content. That's true. I mean, and it's fair. One thing that you can say too is that this may even be a question in terms of your credentials as far as a developer, that people may want to see that you can deliver on a project at all before one with such a very large scope. But of course, the challenge is that if people are verbally committing but not financially committing, you may also have the same question in terms of what your market is going to be once the game is released. To a certain extent, you're right that there's an inherent risk inside of the Kickstarter, right? That you're backing something that you don't know whether or not someone's going to deliver. But it's also important to take that signal to see whether or not that's going to be how people respond once they have the option of the game. Because it's true, the risk is gone, but on the other hand, it's been replaced with all of the other things that people could be playing, right? So for instance, Crypt of the Necrodancer just got an update, and that's a 5-year-old game. It looks great. So, this is something that somebody will have in their library, and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, I'll play this thing that I know that I enjoy over potentially paying for a brand new game. And likewise for me, right? I've got Old World. I love playing Old World. I need to get better at playing Old World. And so you could even see with that game Imperiums, which I enjoyed very much, that was a few weeks before I could get to that. And that was a game where the developer had reached out to me and given me a key. And so in these cases, I didn't necessarily have a financial investment, and I found it difficult to balance the time between those games. So it's definitely a tricky one, right? Because if I think to a certain extent, if we told everyone who had an idea for a game and was working on implementing it, then it's like, oh, well, who would buy it? Well, then we wouldn't have any games, right? If we'd said, it's like, well, Civilization already exists. We wouldn't have Old World, which is improved on that formula. But of course, Old World was financed originally by Starbreeze and then Epic, and then I'm not entirely sure what happened with Hooded Horse, whether or not they bought that from Epic or if there's just another arrangement that's going on. But obviously, in that case, that was kind of another sort of gatekeeper or another source that was sort of putting on those risks. That may even be one thing that you want to try and do too, Vanguard Master, which is that if you're potentially taking on Cuphead. First of all, Cuphead was in development for a very, very long time, and actually, there's a lot of people locally who've worked on Cuphead. Locally, in terms of Ottawa, who've worked on Cuphead. But it was actually very different. When I first saw it on a Unity sort of showcase, it was very different from what I thought it was going to be when I first saw it. But yeah, Vanguard Master, one thing you may also want to see, essentially the only thing that I would just say is that part of the caution or putting the water in the wine here is mostly just trying to make sure that you don't commit more than what you potentially can handle, right? It's a little bit like, if somebody wants to get into investing, it's kind of hard to tell someone, no, you should never go into stocks. But, likewise, there's a bunch of people who got into Bitcoin and, for a while, people like me were looking rather foolish, apparently just not in line with the, with modern reality. And who knows? I mean, life is long. I'm sure, maybe it'll turn around. There's a crypto renaissance, and, I'm ultimately kind of proven to be a stick in the mud. But it's also true now that there's a lot of people who wound up really damaged by that, that activity, that speculation. And so, in the end, it's one of these things where, it's like, it would be hard to tell someone, if it's something that you really think is good. Like, it's not my money to tell people what to do with. Everybody goes to work. Everybody, earns their money. And the reason we go and we earn our money is because we have some things that we want to do with it. But as always, you want to caution people against putting more than they can necessarily handle. We've looked at different contingency plans for what to do if the Kickstarter isn't successful. Worst case scenario happens and the whole thing goes bust. You won't be making any large purchases, but you won't die of hunger. That's great to hear, Vanguard Master. And that was the big one. I'm so sorry to spend so much time on this at the start, but it's a kind of a twin concerns, right? Which is, on one side, I want to have more games, right? I want to have stuff that I love playing, and I want to have how cool would it be to have someone who, from the very start of their game, back when it was first doing its Kickstarter or whatever, to be able to say, it's like, yes, I remember when Vanguard Master stopped by the channel. He's too busy doing other things now, but but the other thing I always kind of need to keep in mind, and this is true for a lot of gaming, right? I think there's been an increasing awareness, in the background, and there is actually a Mohawk angle to this, because if you take a look at the blogs over the course of the development of Old World, as Old World was developing, there were more and more stories about things going on in the gaming industry and the treatment of workers, and maybe these big names who, were accused of really terrible things and ultimately not really facing any kind of a consequence for it. And the, I think it was Layla Johnson had a blog in terms of just sort of helping to shape the studio's culture. I don't want to go too far down this particular road because I don't remember the article that well. And the last thing I would want to do is imply an environment that's more negative than it was. But there seemed to, if I recall it correctly, it seemed to be actually there was a less than healthy environment when she had sort of arrived. At the very least, there were a couple of things just lurking underneath that needed to be dealt with. And of course, when you look at the company now, it definitely seems to be a very admirable one that's produced a very good game. But the thing is that where I wanted to go with this specifically as to relates to Vanguard Master's project is that it's really easy for us to kind of rally around a cause, right? So if the Raven employees are trying to unionize, or if, you have a couple of really high profile cases. So Anand Purana's games recently have kind of come under fire because of, seemingly this over-adherence to the auteur theory and how it seems to have resulted in some fairly difficult personalities being kept on projects longer than they should have after they had become a really harmful influence. But there's a much more, less flashy version of this, which is just the individual trouble that someone goes through. Ultimately, when I play one of these games, I am getting the benefit from all this hard work that people are doing. I'm getting to see all of this work and all this effort that goes inside of it. But ultimately, I'm not going to bear or even necessarily be aware of any of the costs that go into that particular project. I'm not going to know if somebody wound up grinding out 80-hour weeks to try and realize something. And this is also true for a lot of independent developers. It's kind of why I wanted to take the time to talk about that idea of people making verbal as opposed to financial commitments. Because to a certain extent, if somebody comes to me and says, would you like a new game to exist? Well, essentially, that's just an option for me. Variety is the spice of life. If it doesn't seem like it's something I'm interested in, I'm able to ignore it. But of course, ignoring it means that potentially that project is not financially sustainable. And so my verbal commitment potentially has resulted into the commitment of finances and towards something that maybe could have been even better had the developer gone back to the drawing board and reevaluated. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to take the time to talk about this, because there is the fun, there's the product that we like talking about, but I try not to think of Vanguard Master as just someone who is a source of new games. They're a person too, and I definitely wanted to make sure that side of the equation was taken care of. Algren says it's an important conversation, and knowing that you have your bets covered is a good thing. Hope for success, but plan for the fall. And Vanguard says, one thing we've really been lacking is social media presence and PR. I've limited your own personal social media presence due to being in the military, so you're not well versed in how to promote things. I'm far from being an influencer. So I think that has also hurt our Kickstarter success, but we are also thinking of setting up a GoFundMe or Patreon, since those aren't all or nothing, and any financial help will help you with keeping the lights on for longer. Okay, that's an interesting way of going about it. I think you may find that there's a little no worries, Vanguard Master, especially too because I try to angle both the the generalized stuff. So I try to speak to the macro in terms of gaming as a whole, as well as the micro, which is your particular instance. And I mean, again, there's a fine line for me to draw. I find it better to talk about the general, simply because, again, you're an adult. You don't need people to tell you what to do. It's also a ripe topic for discussion. But yeah, I suspect probably what you may find on a couple of the GoFundMes and that is that the commitments that people are making on the Kickstarter are probably ones that, to a certain extent, there's going to be a certain value that people place on the all or nothing side. So in this case, partial fulfillment may turn some of those to more doubtful or smaller values, because in the end, that's where there's kind of the question again as to whether or not the project can be realized as its in its full potential. But I know Valiant Cheese actually does Patreon. So, and I know Valiant Cheese isn't necessarily a huge influencer, although he does seem to have built a really nice community around his releases of Linux games. So that might be, if you're looking for someone to sort of model after, and I know he gives a lot of advice as well. So in fact, actually, let me shout out his channel. While I do that, I can actually also shout out Mohawks, but yeah, he's someone who's supported his game development through sort of a combination of Patreon and paid games. He's the one who made that Hive Time game that I played earlier. And oh, that's really cool. Yeah. That's great to hear, actually. So especially if you've already done a mod. I think you even mentioned the mod in your Kickstarter, and I'd forgotten it. But yeah, being able to sort of establish that ability to ship something, I think will really help you in terms of gaining the support. I mean, Terra Invicta, Pavonis Interactive were the Long War people before they made a standalone game, or are making a standalone game. Obviously, it's not released yet. But yeah, so Valiant Cheese is somebody you might want to check out, because he's someone who's I think he's probably taking a development model that might be something similar to what you're trying. And then to bring me back to the game at hand, we've got Mohawk Games here. So it's also not a bad time for me to mention, this is a weird key to talk about because I did actually get a key from Mohawk for the Epic release of this game, but Hooded Horse did give me a copy to preview Heroes of the Aegean back when that was released with Steam. Yeah, no worries. I mean, Vanguard is part of it. So, like, I have been thinking a bit, like, I'd like to grow the channel, and this is kind of always true, but the thing is that when I say things, it's a little bit like you talking about being an influencer. Everybody who's got a Twitch channel wants to grow it. Like, that's obviously, that's kind of true for everyone. It doesn't even necessarily need to be said. That can kind of be assumed to be a default position. But it's also kind of clear that I need to take specific actions in order to do that. Now, it may be that the digression, I actually think to a certain extent the digressions can be something that will affect that growth. But on the other hand, I also know it's something that people really like. And it's more of a question in terms of balance. Now, in terms of starting up the game, I actually don't necessarily mind that because I think it's a lot better than just having a countdown. But I think also on the other side of things is that when we talk, we very often talk about, real world issues as they relate to the game, whether it's history, very often it's economics, because obviously I'm a little bit better trained in that. But of course, there's also the personal side of things. And especially if it's a personal thing that comes up, I think there's some value in dealing with it. And in the end, the responsibility is for me to try and come up with the right balance in terms of making sure that it goes in. So I definitely don't think you need to apologize for it. In the end, I'm ultimately responsible for how I spend my time, both on broadcast and off. But in the end, I think to a certain extent, because the channel is the size that it is, if I'm going to get the benefit from the fact that it's a smaller community and that there is maybe that more personal side. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing, is that I never need to ask the people who are here whether or not they're having fun. They'll let me know by leaving if they're not having a good time. And that's why it's always so difficult to sort of figure out where my best opportunities to improve are. Because the other thing is I don't watch a lot of my own broadcasts. I find it very difficult to listen to my own voice. So especially when I say it drives me crazy, particularly for broadcasting. But I think one of the things is that I shouldn't ever take something for granted in terms of it being like my thing for broadcasting. But I also shouldn't necessarily take the audience that I have for granted. And I think one of the important things to do as a smaller broadcaster, because you do get the benefit from people liking that more personal touch, the fact that when there are individuals who are in a chat being talked to, it's much more likely that they're going to hear something directly from the broadcaster. And obviously you also talk amongst yourselves. I really appreciate it when you do that because, clearly I do also want to make progress in the games that I do. But instead of just seeing people as a source for comments, the fact that there is that smaller scale does allow me to sort of talk to people at an individual level. And so to a certain extent, we get to celebrate something really cool that you're doing, which is going out and making your own game. And, being someone who doesn't just keep that as, not just an idea, right? It was like when I was working in movies, like everybody had an idea for a screenplay, right? Guess how many of those were actually ever created, right? And not even as films, but just like actually sat down and turned into screenplays. Ideas are actually not as difficult as you would think, although good ideas are maybe a little more scarce. So to a certain extent, right, we want to celebrate that kind of a milestone and the fact that you're able to do something like that. And it is actually a real shame to hear that the Kickstarter isn't turning out the way that you had hoped. And so I don't think there's a lot of value in just being sort of a fair-weathered broadcaster, right? It'd be kind of unkind to just sort of sweep it under the rug when it's if it hasn't turned out. So yeah, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to take the time talking about it. All right, sorry, I'm going to have a sip of tea. I'm going to get my disclaimer out of the way, and then we're going to jump into the scenario. So, anyways, I have been granted a key for this game from the developer and the publisher, as it turns out. And I am a very big fan of it. In fact, for those of you who've been hanging out long enough, that's all good. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I was given a key for promotional purposes. Now, again, I've been streaming the game for a while. Not that you could tell from my gameplay, because there was a gap while I was sort of waiting for the streamer-friendly music to be enabled. But, you know, it is a game where it's always good to just disclose when you've been given a key for promotional purposes. And so I've now done that. Now, I have been feeling a little bit bad. I did actually want to spend some time talking about the introduction for the game anyway, so I'll spend less time than I was originally planning on, but I wanted to just sort of set the table for our playthrough. We started by doing Heroes of the Aegean. We got 3 scenarios in, and I got clobbered in the Philip of Macedon scenario. And it's actually one that I also had trouble with on my personal play. So there was also, this was back when Old World was sort of a newer release on Steam. Not that it's a particularly old release right now, but it's one where I think people are a little more familiar. There'd been a few requests to see sort of what the base single-player game is, so not the scenarios like Here's the Aegean that I was doing. And so I started a Babylonia playthrough, and definitely I wound up learning some lessons from it. But I've also definitely reinforced the idea that I'm not very good at the combat. In fact, generally handling military matters is quite difficult for me. And while it actually turns out, I was reflecting on the playthroughs, it turns out that each time I sort of reset the playthrough and worked through, I did actually eventually overcome the troubles that I was having. So when I was having that trouble with sort of that siege of the Carthaginian city, we managed to overcome that. So I did actually make some progress in the previous stream. But then, of course, we struggled to work on the siege. And I sort of said, I was obviously getting quite frustrated with a couple of special abilities that the Assyrians had, particularly with the tactician trait that their ruler had, which caused their units to basically be undetectable inside of forests. I was generally struggling with it, and I didn't really feel I was showing the game off that well, and more importantly, I sort of felt that I had sort of created these structural problems in my Babylonia playthrough, which were causing me to do a lot of those sort of save and reloads, and I ultimately kind of decided that if I'm going to show the game, particularly because I actually like this game a lot, and you know, getting a little exasperated with the Assyrian archers is probably not going to be the best way to show that enthusiasm for the game. I thought maybe it would be good to go back to maybe, again, try and think about what went wrong and learn from it. And more importantly, to show off one of the things that I really like in the game, which is to show the scenarios, because we haven't actually done the Carthage scenario yet. Algren says, you're the opposite. You're terrible at military. Leave me alone. Stay out of my borders and let me be a miser and build up. Yeah, well, I tend to get rewarded a lot for that type of play. And it's why in games like this, I often struggle with the military. So, and I've said a couple of times that I want to try and do something a little bit more military focused, but it's also true that in the early stages of Old World, you really don't want to be a warmonger. You'll usually lose. What you want to do is build yourself up to a point where you're no longer having people try to beat you up for your lunch money. So in any case, I figured we've done the tutorial already, so we're going to do scenario here. So just as a reminder for those of you who are interested in Old World but do not own it yet, if you want to learn how to play, there are actually three very good resources now. So first of all, there is an in-game tutorial. I'd actually say that this can be split into two parts as well. So there's the formal tutorial that's written into the game. There's also a bunch of different tooltips and sort of an in-game encyclopedia. There is now a wiki. Now, I haven't looked at the wiki too carefully, but the fact that a wiki exists means that the fans are going to build it up quite a bit. And then finally, to coincide with the Steam release, there was also a guide that was released. And I actually had some trouble downloading the updated one through, I think it's like Microsoft OneDrive, but that might be a me problem, not necessarily a general problem. Anyways, it should be available either on Steam or through the wiki. Now that guide is quite long, I'll just let you know, and I definitely find I skim it quite a bit. Now that might be why I'm not very good with the game. I've really not read that much of it because some of it is covering material that I'm already familiar with, but I also need to get those fundamental, and basically I'm trying to learn through other means, but I probably could stand to read the guide a little bit more. But another thing that I think is kind of helpful in terms of learning the game would be the scenarios. So if you just buy the original Old World, you will get the Rise of Carthage, the scenario. And if you get the Heroes of the Aegean DLC, it's not just the scenario, but it's certainly a very big, feature of it. So this has 6 segments as opposed to the 4 from the Rise of Carthage. And I actually think that this is not necessarily a bad way of picking up the game, because in the scenarios you sort of have these events and you have these specific goals that you're trying to achieve. And so you kind of learn the game by trying to achieve these very specific targets, as opposed to the base game where you're really just kind of doing almost anything, right? You're taking whatever path you can, and you sort of need to be able to read the situation a little bit better than maybe is true for the scenarios. So in most games, you tend to lean heavily into the military aspects to accomplish your goals. Money is a necessary evil. So the military, so far as I can tell, I don't know if anybody else here has been in the armed services, but I suppose for you Vanguard Master is probably the one. I think in this case, this is very much playing what you know. Obviously, that it's such a reductive way of putting that, because I know for a fact the Canadian Armed Forces have a very broad range of skills, but I had to make the connection nonetheless. Reminds you of X3 Terran Conflict's Guide to the Universe. You read a thing like a Bible. You just don't do well with the universe unless you can overwhelm via tech and masses like an Alpha Centauri. Okay, so we're going to do Rise of Carthage. The other thing that I like about this is that it's just a chance to talk about Carthage, which is kind of neat. So, found the nation of Carthage in this history-inspired campaign. Sorry, but just if it's not clear, because I know I tend to go down some different paths. But that's essentially going to be for the next few sessions of where we play Old World. I'm going to have in the back of my mind trying to get a bit better at the game. And one of the things that I think is true about this game is that Mohawk called on the Civilization community, basically the people who play their games, to help shape the development and help build the game as it was done. And this is a very complex and interesting game. It's one that I really think has deserved a lot of the accolades that it's gotten. And I sort of feel from my own experience, to a certain extent, I think it's like, so I really do like playing Civilization, but I've also not really played a lot of multiplayer Civilization, or I've not really played sort of the really top tier player kind of Civ. And so to a certain extent, I think there is an expectation for me to up my game in this, which maybe I haven't quite been respecting enough. And so while I'm enjoying the Rise of Carthage, as you can see, I've already completed Oxide, but I figured we might as well start with that. In the back of my head, the other thing I'm going to be doing is trying to just get those markers in terms of where did I struggle, or where is something that I've run into difficulty with before, and how I'm going to make sure that I don't run into that in this particular scenario. And again, the guidance of the scenario will kind of help keep me constrained, but the aim here is that by the end of Game 4, I'm hoping that we'll sort of move on to we'll move on to the next few games with a little bit more confidence in terms of our ability to steer the ship of state. All right, so found the nation of Carthage in this history-inspired campaign. Queen Dido lands on the shores of North Africa with her followers, having fled the Phoenician city of Tyre, where Dido's brother murdered her husband. Thus begins Carthage, a small colony that will have to strengthen its economy and defenses and carve out a place for itself in history. Can you survive as a newly founded colony and set it on the path to greatness? Rules for Game 1, Oxhide. Start with, does anybody, by the way, know the reference to Oxhide? It'll come up really early in this scenario, but I'm curious if people are familiar with this. Start with only divination technology, no starting military unit. Military units that cost training require longer to produce. You may not build any wonders, and settlers rapidly increase in cost as you build more, so choose your city sites carefully, and you may not enter into a tribal alliance. Okay, this is a cool... Excuse me. I may also put the kettle on before too long. You can hear me slurping my tea. I'm really thirsty, but I may put the kettle back on in a little bit. Okay, I don't know. This is a cool little legend. So far as I can tell, there is no... I think there's actually... Okay, we'll tell you what. We'll see what the Oxide's a reference to. There was actually a neat little bit of analysis that somebody did. I think it was mathematicians did an analysis on this, but it's still a fun one. So again, I don't believe this is actually I think this is just legend, but it's still a neat one. Oxide. After Queen Dido of the Phoenician city of Tyre discovered that her brother murdered her husband, Dido fled Tyre and led a colonial expedition to the shores of North Africa. There, a local ruler told Dido that she may settle her people on land that only an ox hide will cover. After cutting the hide into strips, she spent a day laying the strips at the corners of an area large enough to support a fledgling colony. Thus begins the history of Carthage, which means new city in Phoenician. In order to seize control of its destiny, the city must grow wealthy and strong. From humble beginnings, a new power will emerge if the leadership can accomplish its goals. So this is a slightly different version of the legend that I've heard. So in this case, it says local ruler. So the king actually has a name. I don't recall. I think it starts with an M. I don't recall it offhand, though. So the version I heard actually... had Dido approaching the king and asking for the land that an ox hide can cover. So in this case, it's not the king doing the request, but Dido requesting from the king. And of course, I think there might even be a version of the legend where it just magically expands. But the one that I think is most common is, of course, the cleverness of this ruler to break it up into strips and cover a large area. It is also likely that there's a mathematical side to this story, because I think at least a version I heard sort of has it as this big circle, which will cover the largest area. But what's interesting about it is that this is one of these cases where it's a property that's kind of known long before it's proven. So I think the proof that sort of the circle covers the larger area than the equivalent square, I think I got its proof in like the 19th century or something like that. But in any case, to give you an idea of, just the depths to which nerds will follow this stuff, and I include myself right in this crowd. So they did an analysis, and I believe the legend is passed down. They estimated that to cover the area, the strips would have to be cut down to the length of 1/10 of a millimeter. Now, there's a whole bunch of other reasons why you may not necessarily want to take the story at face value, but with it in mind, I still think it's a really cool story, and I think it's one that's worth mentioning, especially because, of course, we tend to think of Carthage in terms of its competition with Rome, but it is a very interesting, state in its own right, with its own history. I mean, you see Dido in the Aeneid, and it's just one of these cases. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I love playing Roman games like this, but one of the things that's so wonderful about being able to play games like Old World and Civilization is that you are able to maybe take a peek at parts of history that you either are unfamiliar with, or, as is true with Vanguard Master, something which you've probably heard before, but maybe hadn't recalled. It's one of the reasons why I asked the question at the start, because I had a feeling there might be a couple of, oh yeah, I remember that one. So, although to be honest, I'd love to see exactly what the analysis of the historicity of the Oxhide story has been. If you can just give me a second, I dropped a pen. Hold on. Excuse me. Sorry, one second. I'm gonna need a second. I'm sorry. I've got a disaster of ink that's slowly building at my feet. Sorry. I'm gonna take like 3 to 5 minutes. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I am one of these nerds who does actually have a fountain pen, so it turns out it's not just my pen dropped, the little pot of refill. But used to play a lot of Roman games set in this time period, but after thousands of hours, you kind of moved on from that and now like to play against Rome, take on the big guy as the underdog. Well, I mean, what's been interesting is in some games have actually taken sort of the founding of Rome or different crises. So, you know, you've got Total War Attila. And then, of course, they've done their recent updates, which would be the Crisis of the 3rd Century and Rise of the Republic, at a time where you're not necessarily seeing a metal nib. But fortunately, the cap was on, so the nib is fine. I've actually dropped a really nice pen and seen the nib just like fold at like a 90-degree angle. It was brutal. But yeah. So there's actually some neat takes on Rome where you aren't seeing it as the empire that it usually is in some other games. But yeah, in this case, we're doing Carthage. Welcome to the Carthage Campaign. Each scenario in this campaign comes with its own goals. In the first scenario, you have 12 goals awaiting discovery, and you have a century, 100 turns, in which to pursue them. Completing 6 goals gets you a bronze victory, 8 goals gets you a silver victory, and 10 goals are required for a gold victory. Each game in the campaign has its own pacing, events, and special rules. You can view the detailed rules at any time by opening the victory screen with F1. The rules for Game 1, Oxhide. Start only with divination technology. Divination lets us build... Right, this is the one that lets us build shrines. Technologies cost 50% extra, does not apply to bonus cards, no starting military... This, by the way, tells me that bonus cards are relatively more valuable as a result. No starting military unit, nor any military technology. Military units that cost training require longer to produce. You may not build wonders. Settlers rapidly increase in cost as you build more. Choose your city sites carefully, and you may not enter into a tribal alliance. So focus on completing goals in order to win. Got it? Or show me the victory screen with detailed rules. Let's take a quick second here. All right. Well, this is basically the same we've seen. So this is a pretty easy one to start with. Well, actually, sorry. We do also, I forgot, we need to pick our families. Grew up in Eastern Europe. You used fountain pens all throughout school. You had the one that you had to stick a bottle of ink and squeeze to refill. I haven't had to squeeze, but I have like a little cartridge that refills it. The fancy ones came out where you had the cartridge where you could just take out. Yeah. So I don't replace my cartridges. I've got one which will actually pull, draw the ink up in the cartridge, but I'm a little bit closer. I mean, I like it just, it saves me from going through a lot of pens. So I just have one nice pen that I write with as opposed to a succession of, of pens that wind up getting taken by coworkers or stuff like that. By the way, if you ever want people to stop taking your pens, if someone asks you for it, just keep the cap. So hand them the pen, but you keep the cap to yourself. You will save so many pens if you do that. Sorry, the kettle is done boiling. I'll be back in a sec. Sorry, it's been a gong show to try and get started tonight. Yeah, so in camera, like I worked on the slate and stuff like that, and like I had to do all the film labels and all of that. So I'd have like Sharpies and like regular writing pens. I'd have tons of different types of pens. And inevitably, right, if you want a pen, you go up to the assistant camera because they're always going to have pens. And of course, because I need pens, because effectively I can't do my job without them, I need a defensive mechanism, a defense mechanism to stop people from taking my darn pens. So, it's just one of these things that you pick up over, over a course of doing a job and getting burned. And so in that case, just if you keep the cap, suddenly people become a lot less forgetful. All right. Also, like the other thing that's nice is with a fountain pen, people tend not to take fountain pens because you don't let people take fountain pens, so that's another nice defensive mechanism. But all right, so we've got the Barkid Raiders. So this will help. This will help with the with military. Cities are always connected. New mounted units start with Saddleborn, can build units that require horses, camels, or elephants. And we get a scout. Now, a scout would be helpful for the start, although maybe we start off with one. I can never remember what you get when you found a city. This is one of the ones that I normally wind up going with, the artisans. Now, there are a couple of arguments for starting with the Meganids, because we've got a mine in range. We've got, what is this? I thought this was a resource, but I guess not. So here we've got ore. We've got plenty of trees. Of course, we also have cattle, dyes, and fish. So there's a weak argument for the Meganids. The Barkid, maybe, like the Scout's kind of nice, but connected when it's the capital maybe isn't the biggest feature either. Traders, which of course would be a very good one for Carthage. The Hanonid can add multiple roads per year, -10 upgrade years for hamlet improvements, +1 order per year per bullion resource, which we do not have in the area currently. Family State unlocks Caravan. We get a new courtier, the Court Merchant, and an opinion bonus from Decent Cities. So I'm not feeling quite... I'm not quite feeling the pressure to add these folks yet. And then finally the Didonians. So extra order per year, extra civic per family opinion level, unlocks decree. We get a treasury 1 and 400 civics for founding. So this definitely seems like a big bonus to start with. Tough call. Let's get the resource bonuses early. So I'm most inclined towards going for a warrior here. This is going to be another thing that I try and do. So one thing that I would like to try and do here is I want to start making some very specific choices about tech. And then I'm going to take a look at what the game recommends. And then I should also do this with my improvements. But I'm going to explain my reasoning to start off with. Then we'll take a look at what the game recommends. And I may still wind up going with what the game recommends, but the idea is going to be that I'm going to have to articulate why I've changed my mind after the game's recommendation. So we don't start with any warrior units, and so warrior makes a lot of sense, especially because we're going to have access to a mine. We have the option of a slinger, so that would be another argument for trapping. Now, it would seem like camp would be a good one. In this case, it'll give me access to camels, elephants, game, and fur, but none of these are the resources we actually have access to. If we take a look at the tree, we've already got divination. So we would need the pasture for the... I'm pretty sure it's pasture for everything that's in the area. Except the fish, I guess. Fish we would have to... Well, this is further down the road anyway, so I don't need to worry too much about that. But, and then there's administration, which would give me the treasury and the granary. Now, we already have the treasury because of the city that I founded. The granary is a nice bonus towards farms. And of course, there is the bonus for growth, which will help me with my settler situation, but I'm not 100% sure that I can afford to have the loss of wood each turn, at this point anyway. The other thing I might want to take a look at is I'd probably want to try and work towards lumber mills reasonably quickly. Now, it does appear fairly late, and I think that's intentional, but in this case, forestry will require polis. And then, of course, we need to draw it as well, but we're 2 techs away, so we definitely need stone cutting before we can even consider forestry. So my biggest thing right now is that the ability to defend myself is probably the most important, which is the reason for ironworking, and the game is recommending it here as well. The Mouthful River, yes, slightly different spelling. This essential tech unlocks warriors, early melee infantry that will form the backbone of your army until they can be upgraded after researching later techs. Okay, so the game's actually recommending that we start with a farm right away. Now there's a few things that I can do. Maybe one thing I'll start with is just take a look at what the different bonuses will get me. The other thing that I may want to consider would be as far as like the different resources that I want to work with, is there some other kind of an advantage that I might be able to realize? So, for instance, right now the farm's going to get me the food. Now, the food's not going to improve my growth. What it is going to improve, though, is my ability to build things like settlers. The Shrine of Astarte, on the other hand, is going to allow me to boost. It's going to allow me to sort of boost my my growth. So that's the number of citizens that will become available inside of Carthage. Starts me off on the religion right away. And then gives a bonus to adjacent pastures. One thing I am slightly more inclined towards would be maybe trying to build the shrine, not necessarily beside the settlement, but I do like that bonus to the pastures. In fact, I can see one going here when we expand to the city site, but maybe what we would want to do is build the shrine here, so that'll expand the urban reach. But it won't, like, we'll still get the bonus for the pasture. So let's make sure, yes, we are able to do that. We also got the wood for taking out the scrub. Now, I mean, actually, hang on. There's one other consideration which I should make, which is this the resource that I want to be building right now? So I can get growth from the nets. In fact, fish will get me growth as well as food. The thing is that religion I tend to ignore, so I may want to put like a little bit more towards that. I also can't remember if you only get to build one. Maybe I can get something from that in the... Shrines can be found to spread pagan religions and provide various benefits. For example, a shrine of Mars. Okay. I mean, wrong one, but it's kind of the same. So this is one that I've always kind of struggled with, and I've actually noticed a couple of people when we host people who are playing this, it's not entirely clear why you can't build more than one shrine. The Shrine of Tanit is actually... So if I had to build one, there's something more of an argument for the Shrine of Tanit just because of what it would give me for the resources. Okay, I'm still going to settle for the Shrine of Astarte. We will develop the fish when we can. Crack Steve, how you doing? And then I'll just make a note on potentially like what happens with the with the different excuse me. I'll keep an eye on whether or not we can continue to build shrines. Okay, let's start. All right, well, that's it for my orders then. So Carthage. I don't dislike the choice of settler, but... Oh, actually, it turns out I needed growth after all. So yes, the shrine is okay, and then we'll follow up with the fish. Just recently started catching up with some of the Marvel shows and movies. I thought you were watching them for a while. Breakout. Years after founding Carthage, Queen Dido ended her life rather than being forced into marriage to a tribal chieftain. For many long decades, the new city was forced to pay tribute to local tribes for use of the land. The city's ideal position at the center of the Mediterranean Sea has afforded it many economic opportunities. Trading ships traveling between Tyre and Phoenician colonies in Iberia began to make regular stop in Carthage. Immigrants flowed into the growing colony. Within its first century, the new city swelled to over 30,000 population. Now, after the passing of 4 generations, Carthage has erected city walls and refused to pay its tributes any longer. Malchus, the bold new king of Carthage, has seized lands of the tribes closest to the city, uniting the region into an ancient metropolis. Soon as the city's wealth grows, it will be able to hire mercenary fighters from the surrounding tribes. So our goal now is to research 2 technologies. Oh, that's good to hear. I definitely have not seen either of those, so you're ahead of me, but... Okay, so I think what we'll do with... I think it said I got 2 militia, so we'll start by... Oh, nope, we just have the 1. I'll still move them to claim the city site, because we're going to need a few turns for our settler. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to harvest and move. And that's basically going to be the next kind of few turns with my scout. We've discovered Lake Tritonus, +1 legitimacy. Despoiled ruins. Scavenging through the ruins, we find significant amounts of stone, iron, and wood. However, local raiders could reach the ruins by nightfall. We can't fight them off, but we can carry some of the loot back home. Which of the 3 would you like us to bring back? So we could bring stone for construction, iron for the troops, or wood is always useful. Wood is always useful, but it looks like we're actually shortest on stone, so let's do stone for construction. Now, I'm a little more inclined towards staying on hills, just because I believe they give me a little extra view. We discovered the Libyan desert. Normally, I would move into the ore to harvest, but we're going to need a minute. Also, it looks like this is a region I might want to claim for myself, so... Oh, I don't. I have every intention of improving my military. I mean, it's why we're researching ironworking, but we're currently generating a surplus. So if you think of it, we're going to get 8 iron just through natural production for my troops, and so that's why I felt that I could get by without getting the extra iron. I should have chosen a governor. We'll do that next. Oh, hang on. No, I can still afford to do that. So we can use Yasmin the Younger for civics and cash, or I could put the ruler, King Malchus, the descendant of Dido. It'll help me with basically everything, but not quite as much money. I think I will at least start with them as governor. We may put them as a general at some point later. Okay. So, as we were talking about, we'll grab... Oh, warning. As citizens from Carthage approach the lands of the Libyans, one of their hunting parties rides forward to parley. One hunter gestures broadly as she speaks. You may control the land near your city now, where you are able to run and hide behind your walls whenever you wish. All of our warriors ride into battle. Do not venture into our lands, nor set your eyes upon what belongs to us, for your walls cannot save you out here. So we could offer a moderate gift of money, which is actually almost half my treasury. Agree not to covet their lands and resources, so we acted meekly towards a tribe, or warn them that Carthage is a mighty nation now and will no longer cower before the threats of primitive tribesmen. Well, it does help our legitimacy, so... Oh, I thought I had one more move. I think I'm actually just gonna park in the trees then. We may need to move the other way around if we're gonna expand, just because if it does look like they want to settle this. So, and we're not really in a position where we can fight the Libyans. Now, given the fact that it says our warriors ride into battle, that may make a suggestion that we want to try and focus on units like spearmen. But that's clearly not something I'm gonna focus on in the immediate term. Right now, I just need to get some warriors. Okay, we will put this unit to sleep. We've really gone and done it now. It's pretty much the edge of the map. Let's go a little deeper. Okay. I mean, this unit's kind of a sitting duck if the Libyans do try to cause any trouble, but... Carthaginian paganism is founded in Carthage. A marriage proposal has been offered from the Didonian family for your king, Malchus, descendant of Dido. How shall we respond to their suggestion? So we have Yasmin the Younger, who I think we were potentially going to make governor, or Oter the Younger, who is lacking in wisdom but makes up for it in courage. 25, 26, so the ages are reasonably close. They're older than my king. How can they do this to me? I'm thinking Yasmin the Younger probably is the right call. There's something kind of neat about having the extra courage. But I'm not quite, given the fact that our goal is to research tech, I'm thinking hampering my research is maybe not the done thing right now. Okay. So, looks like we can build another shrine. We're not going to do that yet. I do want to get those nets built. So this would be the ideal place for my unit to end, but I'm not going to spend the half my training resources to put them in the forest. It is kind of clear, though. I think I may want to consider somewhere else for my scout, though, because if it's just Libyans all the way down, there's no way I'm going to be claiming this territory. I need to look elsewhere if I'm going to be expanding. So let's end the year and see what comes up next. Queen Consort Yasmin has converted to Carthaginian paganism. Your wife has given birth to a son, Prince Ibuam. So this is particularly nice. We have secured the line of succession. A new court scholar, Dido, has joined the court. Her curiosity and insight will aid Carthage in unraveling the mysteries of the world. And Dido the scientist becomes a court scholar. Welcome. And we've got extra science towards that, so ironworking in 3 turns. Okay, let's start by... Yeah. It's not ideal. I probably need to get out of the desert as quickly as possible and see what we've got up here. The woods in particular are nice just for protecting my scout. Now, what do I want to do with my city? I don't have a lot of infrastructure in the area. So for lack of a better option, let's start with the Acolyte. That's only going to be 3 years, so we can actually follow up with a warrior pretty much straight after, so that's not terrible. I may want to consider another worker at some point, though. One to basically harvest trees, and then one to, one to build things. Dummy! I don't think this was intended. Okay, so doesn't make us any sense to go for Barkid here, given the fact that we're going to have access to both horses and elephants. We couldn't do Didonians because we've already got the family seat, so... But then we wouldn't be building mines and lumber mills here. Well, maybe lumber mills, but... So, I mean, maybe we do go for... Yeah, you know what? We'll take the Barkid Riders. Phoenician culture is one primarily of commerce, as envisioned by Queen Dido, who is now worshipped as a goddess. Carthage is ruled by monarchs, leading merchants whose skills keep the economy growing, and the culture thriving serve in the court. As the city of Hadretum is founded, the civilization can no longer be viewed as a city-state. Leaders of the most prominent families come forward to present their ideas on how best to further Carthaginian expansion. Only the monarch personally can choose the path Carthage will follow. Now, contact 2 tribes or have 3 military units. It's probably easier for us to contact 2 tribes, so I'm going to go for that. We have to do that within 30 turns. We've already found one, and I think the Numidians count, so we probably have already succeeded at this point. An emissary from the Numidians rides forth under a banner of truce. The Libyan tribes near your city have been fools to ignore your growing wealth and power. Their tribute demands were harsh. They have paid their price for treating you unfairly. We respect that you have earned your place in this land now, yet we are still the elders here. Show the respect that we are due, and our 2 peoples will live together as neighbors. So we could pay a larger tribute in iron to secure a more stable peace. That's pretty expensive. Pay smaller tribute in money. That we could afford. Or we could refuse to pay any tribute. I'm willing to give up the money. We're generating 127, so... As desired by the Didonian family, we have established diplomatic contact with both major local groups of tribes. Excellent. We are on our way to becoming a respected nation. So, actually, this does help me out a little bit, so I think I might actually change my mind as far as what to do with the scout, so we can continue to explore the... Well, no, actually, we'll just use 2... We'll use 2 scouts to kind of do 2 parallel lines, and then I'll maybe send one of them off to check out this area over here. Okay, so... I think we start with a worker for sure. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger is now head of Carthaginian paganism. Their opinion of you has gone from cautious to pleased. I'm so happy that my wife and I get along. All right, let's start by exploring with the scout. All right. This is going to take some getting used to. Actually, they're going to beat me up. Okay, nope, so I'm going to have to take my lumps if they do. I'm trying to avoid the whole, oh, it turns out there was something in this area. I'll just back up and move them into the woods. It's like, nope, I didn't know that at the time. Can't act on it. But we will... move where we can. Okay. Not a whole lot for me to do because I'm building everything right now, but my hope is that we can... So we'll definitely convert. Yeah, there's not much else for my character to do. Yeah, we kind of knew that was going to happen. Labor. Carthage controls more land than it did just a decade ago, yet much of it lies unused. There's need for more workers so that more of our land may be put to productive use. Sea snails that Tyre uses to produce dyes are also found near our shores, or will help our warriors, and there are fertile lands for farms as well. So our new goal is 3 workers. That's well within my ability to pull off. So I'm going to move my... Actually, you know what? I'm going to move them straight back to my territory to heal. But we are going to activate the militia. Now, they may not be well equipped for fighting, but they're what I've got. So... we've discovered the Oris Mountains. Heaven and Earth. A temple stands atop the crest of the highest hill, its terrace decorated with bright metal and ceramic. Local legend marks this site as where heaven and earth meet, where all life began. Of course, the only way to see its wonders is to inhale some of the mind-altering plants along the hillside in an ancient spiritual ceremony. A soldier brings you a bowl of this strange powder, but he seems hesitant about its effects. So, for starters, this is always, to me, this is the fun of playing games like this. We are going to read what inspired this. Sorry, I just need a second to put it all up. People love to complain whenever something's not on dark mode, so there's going to be a big, bright white light in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ah! Puma Punku. Puma Punku, or Puma Punku, Amira and Quechua, which literally means Gate of the Puma, is a 6th century T-shape and strategically aligned man-made terraced platform mound with a sunken court and a monumental structure on top that is part of the Puma Punku complex at the... Geez, this is not easy to write. Tuanku site near Tuanco in western Bolivia. The Puma Punku complex is an alignment of plazas and ramps centered on the Puma Punku platform mound. Today, the monumental complex on top of the platform mound lies in ruins. It is believed to date to AD 536, after Acapana, who is believed to be Pumpanaku's twin. Pumpanaku is the second most important construction in Tiwanaku. Among all the names for the areas in Tiwanaku, only the names Acapana and Puma Punku have historical relevance. At Puma Punku, several miniature gates, which are perfect replicas of once standing full-sized gateways, were found. Additionally to these miniature gateways, likely at least 5 gateways and several blind miniature gateways were once, or were intended to be, integrated into the Puma Punku monumental complex. The foundation platform of Puma Punku supported as many as 8 andesite gateways, the fragments of 5 andesite gateways with similar characteristics to the Gateway of the Sun were found. Okay, so this is the biggest problem I have with this. Normally, the summary section in Wikipedia will tell you what the thing is, but it's pretty much just describing the site. Anyways, sorry, I don't want to complain too much about it. Just it's one of these cases where I'm trying to see the relevance of this to Old World. We're talking about mini gateways. All right. Additionally to these miniature gateways, likely at least 5 gateways and several blind miniature gateways were once or were intended to be integrated into the Puma Punku monumental complex. The foundation platform at Puma Punku supported as many as 8 end site gateways. The fragments of 5 end site gateways with similar characteristics to the Gateway of the Sun were found. Tiwanaku is significant in Inca traditions because it is believed to be the site where the world was created. Okay, here we go. In Amara, Puma Punku's name means Gate of the Puma. The Puma Punku complex consists of an unwalled western court, a central unwalled esplanade, a terraced platform mound that is faced with stone, a walled eastern court. At its peak, Puma Punku is thought to have been unimaginably wondrous, adorned with polished metal plaques, brightly colored ceramic and fabric ornamentation, and visited by costume citizens, elaborately dressed priests, and elites decked in exotic jewelry. Current understanding of this complex is limited due to its age, the lack of written record, and the current deteriorated state of the structures due to treasure hunting, looting, stone mining for building stone, and railroad ballast and natural weathering. Let's see. Yeah, when Spanish arrived at Tiwanaku, there is still standing architecture at Puma Punku. Bernabicobo reports that one gateway and one window was still standing on one of the platforms. Atlantis and aliens enthusiasts. I think I'll skip over that for now. Okay, so we could say my mind is open, and we'll get some culture for that. I'll also become exotic and gain charisma. Or I want no part in such rituals. I'll become educated, gaining wisdom. So again, our goal is to research technologies, and so I'm probably going to, as much as I would love to, snort whatever strangeness my soldier has brought to me. Perhaps I should go for the wisdom. Okay, we're out of actions, so I think I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so we've got our tech. So the next, as usual, the question is going to be, what do we want as far as technology is concerned? Now, labor force is good to have, but it's not really... So the first division I can make would be 4 years or 6 years. Is there something that I get for those 2 extra years? Now, labor force is nice because it gives me roads, but the 2 cities that I have are already connected. Or should be. I'll maybe double check that. Likewise, aristocracy. I'm not going to say ambassador is bad, but is it 2 years delay for other things that I might need? Good. Now, a camp, given the fact that we're starting to see some more camels and elephants in the area, and the fact that that will get me orders, does actually make trapping somewhat more attractive. However, we are currently on a deficit for building, and so I think probably the quarry is the right call, although the game is recommending trapping, oddly enough. So stone cutting allows you to build quarries in your cities, an essential improvement that provides steady income of stone. It also allows the construction of forts to provide an early line of protection, increasing the defense, line of sight, and healing of a unit on the same tile. Alternatively recommended, this early tech unlocks slingers, a ranged unit able to attack from a distance, and camps, a diverse improvement that provides essential orders when built on camels and elephants, or helps to improve your city with growth or culture when built on game or fur, respectively. I think I'm still going to focus on stone cutting, because stone cutting is also going to get me civics for the quarries. But I can see why I can kind of see the arguments for both. Okay, now Nets is going to get me culture and cash. One thing I may want to start thinking about is where will I put my farms? So maybe... Well, I wasn't really wanting to build a farm here, but I guess like a pasture farm like this could work. I am, however, going to start by building the nets because we don't need the growth for a new settler yet. We are, however, going to build a warrior, and where I can, it would be nice to get. It would be nice to try and get additional training because 10 years is a long time to wait for a warrior. Naval supremacy. To date, Carthage has followed the example of the motherland of the great Phoenician city of Tyre, using wealth alone to control our destiny. Yet Tyre resides at one end of the vast Mediterranean Sea, while Carthage sits astride the middle of the sea. From this position, the most profitable trade routes pass through Carthaginian waters, while naval power could be projected to anywhere. The future will belong to the greatest naval power, for who can imagine anyone being able to harm an empire who cannot be defeated at sea? Armies could not even reach us. Building the largest, most skilled, most powerful navy will be key to our ascension. And to do that, we will need to construct 3 biremes. That's going to have some consequences in terms of how I traverse the tech tree, but we've already made our choice for stone cutting, so we'll have to factor that all in after the fact. Okay, I am going to... I guess I can't fortify. I'm actually going to... Ugh. I don't think I get a defensive bonus. I don't think hills give you a defensive bonus. Yeah. I'm actually going to move back. I just don't want to give him an excuse to be able to damage me. I bet I can do slightly better if I move over here. Nope, not really. Okay, this unit's healed up, so I'm going to try and be clever in my movements, but... So this is obviously our next point of expansion. We've got olives. Maybe artisans here? I don't know. What do my families think of me? We're on good terms. Young Hannibal. Oh, looks like they were coming after me after all. Okay, well, I wanted to try and be clever in terms of how this worked out. I think we still get the upper hand, but it might be close. Okay, so as always, precious resources. And then, of course, exploration's always nice and, you know, on its own, but I can't remember. So I think this counts as an action. No, it doesn't. Okay, cool. So I'm able to grab the goodies and run. So yeah, this is very attractive, and in this case, we'll definitely go for artisans so that we can get the gems. A new heir. At the announcement of the heir's birth, celebrations erupt in the capital of Carthage. People gather in the streets to toast Prince Bomilcar. What about my other kid? And revel in the hope of the bright future. My legacy has been secured. Okay, so let's just see, because I guess that means that Duke Iboham is not mine. No? Weird. Okay, so yeah, they're not able to take this unit out, so we'll poke them. we'll run back to home when we can, but we'll do the usual investigation and make the most of what we find. It's a lot of Numidians. Okay, it is tempting to build another warrior right now. I am also going to want a settler. Question is, which am I going to get done first? I think we'll do the warrior here because both warriors will come online roughly around the same time. Right, I can't build a pasture here because I don't know how to build pastures, so yes, I will build the farm after all. Now as for you, let's get the nets built. I'm probably going to be short on what I can do with my scout this turn. Ooh. So we're doing a pretty good job catching what we need off the map. Again, I do want to think about my expansion, but you've completed the goal, research 2 technologies. Dido the Scientist is converted to Carthaginian paganism, and reports of a tribal raid from a Libyan hovel near Hadramentum. Okay, so not only am I going to want to move the militia really quickly, I'm going to want to make sure that I need to heal. One, I need to get them in friendly territory to heal them up, and then I also need them to sort of fight back the raiders. So our advances in technology will grant us an advantage over the local tribes. More so the more that we learn and innovate. We should turn our gaze outward now towards what lies beyond the horizon. Founding new cities will grant us control over more land and additional resources. Carthaginian merchants can trade these resources to other nations and turn enormous profits. Wealth is the path to prosperity and power. So our new goal is to control 4 cities. That's going to be a tricky one to do. We've got one when we clear out these barbarians, but I think we're basically going to have to go to war with the Libyans to get our 4th. Okay, so we've picked stone cutting. Now we have 1 5-year tech, which is administration, and then drama, aristocracy, and husbandry. Now, there is one appeal for drama, which is that it starts the music for the game, which is really beautiful. But I actually think the game's recommendation of pasture here is the right one because we do have cattle in the area. So I am going to go for husbandry after all. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move the militia as close as I can to Hadrumentum, and we will heal. So now the rest of it is me. All right, we're too far from a friendly city, so now we just scout everything we can. And hope for the best. I think that's it for our... Well, sorry, we'll be able to take something else, but... the Phoenician peoples pay homage to many gods. Shrines are no longer enough. The great families of Carthage desire to construct temples within the city to honor favored gods such as Baal-Hamon, the god of fertility, and his consort Tanit. Land near the city is fertile and should be preserved for farming. Trying to quarry stone near the shore is a fool's errand. The city lacks easy access to the supplies of the stone needed to satisfy the hunger of the citizenry. Much of the stone that had been locally available was used in the construction of the city walls. Carthage is wealthy enough to import stone, but securing local sources would be better in the long run. Leadership is needed to meet the demand for stone. The family's desire for the nation to set this as a priority. And we need to stockpile 500 stone. We should think a little bit about how should think a little bit about how we'll achieve that. But Libyan tribes to the southeast were initially shocked to learn of the news that Carthage has subjugated their nearby brethren. They have heard plenty of rumors about the wealth of the emerging city, seeking plunder and glory. Some among them have set out to raid Carthaginian lands. The great families have engaged in debate. Should we answer this threat with retaliation, or should we rely on our defenses to protect us while we seek and acquire more wealth? So, the tricky question here is, when am I going to be able to deliver this, basically? So, do I think I'm going to have enough military strength to be able to take out the barbarians to the west and move around and take out the Libyans without completely demolishing myself? Or, actually, I think I'm going to, see, this does take up production time, but I'm going to say issue decree. Love is in the air. Oder has managed to speak with you in private. She leads you into a cozy nook and says, Malchus, I have to tell you how I feel. You see, I could never resist a man with such ability to understand and compromise. I know this must be a surprise to you, so I'll give you some time to think about what I've said. She gives you a fond smile and walks away. So Oter the Builder is in love with King Malachus, the descendant of Dido. That's a lot to take in. All right, we're out of orders, so no more movement for now, at least. Okay, so I'm going to move to the capital just so I have a little protection and heal up. We're still anticipating the raiders, but I'm not, like, going to go out of my way to find and engage them. Survivors. This village has only recently been sacked, and we discovered a band of survivors bundled in its ruins. These destitute refugees seem eager to abandon the wreckage of their old lives and join our nation, but they are strangers to our culture. What will you do with them? So we can invite them to resettle in our nation. That gives us a worker. That will actually probably, yep, that'll complete our goal. Or recruit them as hardened explorers. Now, the extra orders is kind of nice, but being able to complete a goal is even nicer. So, citizens of Carthage who work the land are everyday heroes. Their toil and sweat will be the foundation of our greatness. Beyond our current borders lie even more lands for us to seize and use. All right. We've discovered the Cork Oak Forest. So this is going to be a bit of a tricky one to actually get them back. But it's worth it. Unwise and often absurd, Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger, your wife, is foolish. Skill. King Malchus, the descendant of Dido, convenes the court to seek counsel of the oligarchs. The crown intends to emphasize skilled labor and adopt policies to support productivity. However, there is an opportunity to promote one area of skill above the others. What should that be? So either we clear 2 Libyan camps or we adopt 2 laws. We have the civics for the laws. It's hard to say. Yeah, we'll go the statesman route again. I'm only doing these options because I kind of doubt my ability to actually deliver on some of the military goals in time. All right, I've got a lot that I want to get done here. So let's start. I'm going to start with the mine, and then we'll move to the stone. Probably should do it the other way around, but going to settle for nets first. I really do not want to move them close to the barbarians. I don't think I moved my other scout at all. Yeah. But they're in stealthy position, so that's okay if I'm in my book. Okay, here comes the raid. Duke Iboam is now old enough to be tutored by courtiers. Time passes quickly. Duke Iboam is growing up fast and eager to learn. How would you like to educate him? Okay, so he's not going to inherit the throne, so maybe... I mean, commerce is definitely very Carthage, but I think I'm going to say tactics. Fates and fortunes. Your days at court are filled with hearing a wide range of petitions and deciding people's fates. Much of the time, the people who come before you and their various pleadings are fairly predictable. You do love it, though, when you get a genuine surprise, and on this day, you have definitely received one. A man calling him Ishpaki the Libyan appears before you with a most intriguing proposition. Majesty, I'm primarily interested in trade, in bettering myself and improving the lot of my family by way of commerce. This stands in stark contrast to the general bent of my people, who would much rather fight and stuff their faces. You nod in understanding. If I may come straight to the point, I find myself increasingly at odds with my own kind. Constant warfare is not the way forward. If you would agree to grant my tribe a sum of gold to formally release me, I would happily sever ties with my people and serve you. An intriguing notion indeed. So this could work to our advantage. We'd pay 360 wealth in order to get the courtier, or intriguing idea or not, it's just not something we can afford to do at the present. I mean, I like the idea of just simply not paying them, but we don't have that option. So we will spend the money and we'll gain a court merchant. And that moved us up to 174, so I'm not upset by that at all. We're now known as Malchus the Ambitious. A new court merchant, Ishpaki, has joined the court. His keen attention to economic affairs will help Carthage prosper. All right, as always, we try and move them in. Okay, we want to heal up the militia before we do anything else. Now, we're kind of lucky. I don't think they can destroy the improvements on water. The region will be unhappy when they're sort of under siege, but I'm basically just going to have to live with it for now. Sunken Tombs. A series of stone-cut tombs line the seaside cliffs. While most of the ruins appear to have been looted, many have sunken beneath the tidal waters, the result of frequent earthquakes. Your scouts can scour the rubble for valuables, or you may hire small craft to explore the shallows. As always, we'll just take a minute here and... All right. Bright light in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kalakoi, literally Castle's Village, is a village of the Demri district in the Antalya province of Turkey, located between, I'm probably going to get these wrong, but Kas and Demri, on the Mediterranean coast. Kalakoi faces the island of Kekova and can be reached by sea or on foot from... I see the accents. I know... The good news is there's a couple of good Turkish economists, so I might be able to make an effort on this. I just need to parse it out. So, is it Yisawas? Maybe there's a pronunciation in the article. Nope. The village lies amidst a Lycian necropolis, which is partially sunken underwater. Kalakoi is overlooked by a Byzantine castle built in the Middle Ages to fight the pirates who nested in Kekova. The castle contains a small theater. Kalakoi is a popular yachting destination. Whoa. Okay, so we can spend money. We get science... And I get Mysterious Sword Owner or Cursed, or search the coastal rubble for cash and iron. I mean, the iron's tempting. Let's unmount the undersea expedition. I become cursed. Okay, so at this point of the map, basically it's just kind of cleaning up the gaps. I still want to like put a proper effort into properly mapping everything out, but I have a pretty good idea of what I can and can't do in this area. How do you usually play these sorts of games? Do you make any decisions based on role play, or do you simply look at this decision? It's asking me to exchange this resource for that one, or exchange this resource for this one. This is actually a good question for Old World in particular, because obviously it has a lot of similarities to some games where I would tend to play more from a role-playing point of view. So I'm thinking, Crusader Kings is a really good example of this. My general inclination for Old World is to play it a little more seriously and to think in terms of what I need. So you've definitely seen me make some decisions earlier on where I'd say, I'm trying to think of an example. Like I said, okay, I'm going to go for the wisdom option because that's in line with my overall goal of researching two technologies, for instance. And the way that this game is structured is it definitely rewards a little bit more, for lack of a better term, I don't like using this term, but it's the best one I have available, serious play, basically. So what I mean by that is just you will have 100 years in which to do things inside of this game, or 100 turns, which in this case correspond to years. And you will be kind of rated on the number of objectives that you achieve within those 100 years. So with that in mind, I think there's a little bit less space to kind of go full RP and still try to get a top kind of victory. Now that doesn't mean, but the thing is that I don't also want to sort of fall into sort of this false dichotomy, because I think this is a very enjoyable game, and I think it can be played from something of a role-playing perspective. But the role play is a little bit different from just building whatever you want. So maybe here's another way that you can think about this. If you play the Elder Scrolls, you can make a character, and the intention of those games is that you can basically make whatever character you want, and you can basically do whatever you want. If you want to completely ignore the main plot line of that game, you're basically playing it the way that game was intended. I'm sure they would appreciate if you enjoyed the work that they put in. But the game does absolutely nothing to direct you towards the main quest. In fact, I think when I first tried, I can't remember if it was Oblivion or Skyrim. I think it might have been Skyrim, and I actually think I disliked the game originally because of this. Basically, it I actually didn't know how to get onto the main quest. I was constantly sort of pulled in all these other directions. So the reason why the Elder Scrolls can sort of do that is that's its intention. And so, in this case, it's a fantasy game, and you can be whatever you want. Now, there is a degree of role-playing still present inside of Old World, but I think it's maybe a little bit more closer to how you and I might be experiencing the world, and that is that we are born into certain circumstances, and we also make certain choices. And so there's going to be a combination of, the circumstances that we're born in, as well as the choices that we make, that are going to put some restrictions in terms of what we do. So, perhaps it may be the case that, humanity moves towards some kind of post-scarcity utopia that you see in some sort of science fiction books, and that we sort of realize, the sort of communism you'd hear about in Marx of, someone, hunts in the morning. What is it? It's like hunts in the morning, fishes in the day, writes poetry in evening, or something along those lines. But basically, essentially you make of your time what you do, and that you do not necessarily have sort of this treadmill of needing to make some kind of productive contribution to earn your survival, that instead you want to do it through some other goal or motivation. And again, I'm not trying to just on the odd chance that somebody wants to try and take this as some sort of political manifesto. I'm not making a normative claim here, right? It may be that one day humanity leads to that, but I live in a world where I need to show up to work every day, that the landlord is going to expect rent every month. The grocery store is not going to want to know about my ambitions, and they will not be paid in exposure. They accept currency. What was it? A communist society where nobody has one exclusive sphere of activity, but each can become accomplished in any branch he wishes. Society regulates the general production and thus makes it possible for me to do one thing today and another tomorrow, to hunt in the morning, to fish in the afternoon, rear cattle in the evening, criticize after dinner, just as I have a mind without ever becoming hunter, fisherman, shepherd, or critic. Thank you. What was that from, out of curiosity? Because I know he wrote more than just, co-authored the manifesto with Engels, but there's more than just capital. I know there's like the Grundrisse and his work for his journalistic work as well. But I'm not very well read on Marx. Oh, interesting. Okay. But yeah. So obviously I'm really making a meal of the answer for this. But I kind of like to suggest that the German ideology. Okay, cool. The idea here is that I kind of think the role playing of Old World reflects sort of the necessity of the circumstances you find yourself in. And again, that can be sort of how the game winds up shaping out, whether it's your starting conditions, whether it's, the circumstances you find yourself in after a few different turns. So with that in mind, you're going to have some restrictions in terms of what you can do that maybe you wouldn't normally associate with more of a role-playing experience. But what I kind of want to suggest here is that I feel it's a different type. So I do think that the events of this game, specifically the events, actually, there's a couple of other things that do, but I think the events of this game do a very good job of sort of giving me that feeling that I am this ruler that I'm playing. And so it's another sort of plan of attack as far as the role-playing is concerned, in the sense that my character, like, basically I am responding a little bit more to events, and I'm investing myself in those events. Although, to answer your original question, I definitely feel like I'm more inclined to make decisions that are aligned with achieving the goals that the game has set out for me. And that's largely because in this particular game, there are fixed goals, and it's very clear whether you've achieved them or not. Whereas some of the other games where I'll maybe just kind of throw caution into the wind and just sort of say, I'm going to play something kind of silly here. Those are games which are a little bit more open-ended, and if there are sort of win conditions, they're ones that are either very open-ended or they're ones that happen very late in the game. Yeah, no worries. I don't actually think there's a whole lot of value in... I don't think there's a whole lot of value in just being able to pull trivia out of your head all the time. The thing is that, like, there is a phenomena of... what is it? It's the thing. I can't remember the website name, but like if you search for quotes, it always comes up. So there's like brainy quote or whatever it is. And what it will very often do is it will give these quotes from famous people. And they'll often be very good quotes, but they're also things that have never been written by the quote. So like, I'll give you a couple of examples. The function of prayer is not to change God, but to change the nature of the one who prays. I think that's actually a pretty cool description. It says Kierkegaard wrote it. He definitely didn't. You can find a somewhat related concept, I think, if you dig in, but definitely it is not presented in such a quotable way if you want to attribute it to Kierkegaard. Another one from, this is at least in the period, well, close to the period that Old World will cover. In our play, we reveal who we are, which is attributed to Ovid. So far as I can tell, never wrote it. Seems like the sort of thing that might be in like Ars Amatoria. Definitely not there. I've read it a couple of times, and it's not there. Again, like the quote, but it's not something that Ovid ever wrote. The really famous one about Voltaire. Was it I disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. Not actually Voltaire. It is someone describing Voltaire, and probably not an unfair description of Voltaire's thought, but Voltaire never said that. So yeah, that's actually the only problem that I would ever have. Yeah, go ahead, Vanguard Master. It might be the one that I'm thinking of, but yeah, please go ahead and share the link. The thing is that like Google is a really helpful this is the one that I thought, yeah, the picture of Abraham Lincoln. Don't believe everything we read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. It's really good to read broadly. That has value in and of itself. But what kind of matters is your ability to make something of that knowledge. So like, obviously I was a little worried on the Marx quote. It was just because I have heard it said. Obviously, the context, the quote that you presented was quite different from how I presented it. So obviously what I had suggested was quite different from what the man wrote. It's actually very similar to the opium of the people line, which is a little bit more of a statement of the conditions that lead to the need for such an opiate, as opposed to just sort of being this like super, if it were to be a YouTube, Carl owns the religious right with, whatever. But yeah, like I don't necessarily think there's a whole lot of value in just being able to sort of like, I have a tremendous respect for the people who are able to do this, like just being able to like pull out the quote and know exactly what work it was from and, being able to cite it correctly. But I don't think it's shameful to say you looked it up, right? Like obviously, the transition from ignorance to knowledge requires us to have received some kind of instruction, whether that comes from Google or whether that comes from, a university class or somebody in chat letting you know with all capital letters what a moron you are. We got to learn somehow. So anyway, sorry, that was a longer digression than I had intended. All right, so the city is going to be mad that they're under siege. The people of Carthage have decided to host athletic games to celebrate their good fortune. They would be honored for you as governor to participate. What will be your involvement? We could preside over the games as a judge, which will, for some reason... Oh yeah, I'll no longer be a diplomat. That's why I lose the charisma. But I will gain discipline. Wager on the athletes. I will lose diplomat and become a schemer. Compete in the wrestling event myself, at which point I become a hero, which is actually a pretty strong It's actually a pretty strong military bonus. But I think I'm just going to stick... This is actually kind of a neat one. There is some value in any of these, but I'm actually going to just observe. Malchus is you and the governor of Carthage. We can become strict, a delver. The bonus to mines and quarries is actually quite tempting, given the fact that I will have both near the capital, but I am going to go for the wisdom. An assignment, and a letter arrives by courier from Duke Iboham at the Academy. Dear Malchus, as part of my instruction in the Academy, my tutors have directed me to write to you. All has been going well, and I have little to complain of. I miss Mother at times, but I must carry on. Your son, Iboham. Thank you. Please return to your duties, courier. There's a time and a place for memorizing dates and a time and a place to begin to be able to have a conversation around a topic. Yeah, well, I mean, it comes down to... So, like, clearly there is a lot of value in knowing these things. Like, I would never want it to seem like someone is, you know, has done, like, a bad thing for having a mind for... I mean, like, also there are some people who just have a very impressive memory for... like literature and poetry. I know poetry, like, because of the rhyming is easier to remember, but you know, it's definitely something that is not a skill that it comes easily to me, let's say. Now, if the point is just to flex, it's like, okay, but surely there are better things to do with an education, right? Maybe not so sure that you would just want to, like, I suppose I just say, like, if the reading that you're doing is so that you can be interesting at a cocktail party, I mean, again, who am I to say what the right reading is and what isn't? But man, there's just so much more you can do with this stuff, right? Like, to be able to play a game like Old World. Again, I keep bringing it back to Old World, but also it's more than just gaming. But, like, being able to, like, this is the reason why I like the inclusion of these links, is like when you play something like Old World and you see that reference to this thing that you've understood, particularly because your interests drove you to studying these things. There's a Schopenhauer essay called On Thinking for Oneself, and I don't even necessarily agree with all of his arguments in it, or necessarily his conclusions. So, like, essentially, I think one of the things he says inside of it is that basically you shouldn't read anything that you haven't sort of, like, basically you need to sort of sit down and think of everything on your own, and then you read when you've run out of things to think of. And, you know, this is how you get to, like, proper knowledge. And I'm like, well, I don't think this is necessarily a bad way of going about it, right? Like, there is something to be said for, like, really wrestling with a problem, and, like, you're not just parroting back what you read in a book, but you're actually really trying to understand the thing that you're reading. But, like, when I think of most of the stuff that I've read in probability, it's just nonsense. Like, probability is just full of... Sorry, I'm using nonsense in, like, such a terrible way. But, like, you have almost no hope in being able to work out probability on your own. I mean, probability is something that Isaac Newton worked on and got some stuff wrong because the results are so counterintuitive. If you have to do a calculus class, right, and you kind of learn, like when you learn something like the chain rule, like you want it to be something different because it feels like it should be easier. You feel like you shouldn't have to do the chain rule when you need to. But math doesn't work that way. Like, you have to do the chain rule, and if you don't do the chain rule, you're wrong. But, you know, again, like I think there is a lot of value. And the thing I really liked about that essay is that it definitely talks about what I think is a helpful temperament for wrestling with important problems and wrestling with worthwhile topics. And again, if it's a very different kind of reading from, just kind of picking up dusty old tomes that, have big reputations and quoting from them without necessarily understanding them. That doesn't necessarily lead to discussion. And again, I'm not going to, like I said, people will be reading whatever they want for their own reasons, and it's really not my place to tell them. But yeah, I definitely don't want to, I guess the thing is Googling it is not inherently bad. Going down a Wikipedia rabbit hole is not necessarily bad. But if in the end it's spending hours of just accumulating trivia, sometimes it's like, well, was this time well spent? Or was this, was this as enjoyable as sort of scrolling through Twitter? There's nothing wrong with both activities. But it is also helpful to, particularly if you really want to sort of make your mark and to be able to really dive in deep. Sometimes you want to push a little bit past just the fun trivia stuff and to really, really start getting into those things that sometimes are a little bit difficult or sometimes make you feel ignorant. It's one of the most difficult things, right? Is like when you read something and you find out how little you know. It can be a bit embarrassing, but obviously running away from it doesn't make you any better. Anyways, carnivorism. Standing back at a river one day, you have an irresistible urge to forego all fruits and vegetables. All the fawning and back-patting of the court has finally driven you nutty. You decide you shall not eat anything green. You shall only drink wine and eat only meat, pork, chevin, venison, and beef with salt for taste. Also, manners and clean clothes are overrated. Maybe you will sleep outside and wear furs like your honorable ancestors did. The court must bow to my desires. This is my life. Bow before me, mortals. Or just think about how all that meat comes out during latrine visits. Oh man, so if you have a sufficiently high level of wisdom, you can not go nuts. All right. Carthage may be an independent nation, but it would not exist without Tyre. They are Phoenicians, as are we, and it is Tyre's position in the region that allows Carthage to thrive. Many trading ships stop at our harbors, but it is Tyre that serves as the final destination for these ships. Carthage will surely suffer greatly if Tyre falls to a hostile force, or if it begins to consider us an enemy. Thus, Carthage regularly sends a tribute to Tyre, arriving at the city's great temple of Melkart with our best regards. What shall we send to Tyre now? So we could send our finest produce and lose 110 food. Now that's more or less going to empty my food reserves. Iron we don't have enough of. Money is always useful. So we gain 174 a turn. So 360 is not that big of a loss. And what we have we need for ourselves. Carthage is done paying tribute, even to the mother city. No, let's just send the money back. Okay, as always, we'll take the time to move our worker where it needs to go. Give the militia give him a poke. We've got 2 turns of this, so we're going to have quite a bit of discontent, but there's not a whole lot we can do about it, sadly. Let's get the tutorial in. Okay. So 2 scouts. Again, at this point, this is really more about clearing out the parts of the map I haven't seen yet. Okay, now this is a tricky one, right? Because I really would like trapping, but I would also like the stone boost, and this is aligned with my my goal. So I am going to do the stone boost so I don't lose it. But the next question is, what do I want to do with my worker? The mine here will have an adjacency bonus, which is pretty nice. The pasture gives me orders. Actually, the orders from the pasture alone might be enough to convince me. Okay, one more turn and we can deal with the raiders. Right, I'm not close enough to be able to take the camels. So again, this is just about clearing out as much of the map as I can get with the scout. The early morning sun streams into the palace, warming the mosaic floors. A faint echo of children's laughter emanates into your study from the courtyard. Curious, you step outside to find Prince Bomlakar and Amatbal throwing a pig's bladder ball to each other. Seeing you pass, the children come over to greet you. So encourage them to have fun and play. Encourage them to think about the strategy of the game. Or tell them to stop wasting their time with games. So, I mean, discipline's good given our economic bonuses, but let's keep working on our tech. Okay, let's also start working the quarry. So the quarry is the last thing that I don't have sort of a positive number for. That's one reason I wanted to prioritize that. This is going to be a worry. Oh, but we've got warriors now, so... Ha-ha! Carthage rises. Okay. Feeling a bit better about clearing out the map now. Home Oak Woodlands. So there was apparently more territory to be discovered. All right. God, there's so much for me to do here. I think I'd actually like to focus... No, sorry. Let's do the decree first. Because that's only 3 years, and then I'm going to train as settlers. If you can just give me 1 second, I would like to do some more tea. I'll start boiling the kettle and then... I'm sorry to take so many breaks on this, but I'm feeling a little fuzzy, and it's not... This is not caffeinated, so it's not going to make me feel more alert, but just something hot usually keeps me on top. It's a habit thing. Okay, fewer threats than before. Now, eventually we are still going to want to make a move on the Libyans because we're not going to be able to expand otherwise. But at least I kind of know the lay of the land. And we are going to start moving scouts towards their areas so we can get maybe an idea of where we would want our expansion to be. The tutor mission of Ishpaki the Libyan has led to an event, and Mutambal the educated has converted to Carthaginian paganism. Once a week, Ishpaki brings his young pupil to the slums of Carthage, where Iboham feeds the poorest of the poor. The teacher insists that such a lesson is vital in shaping future leaders. Iboham appears to be benefiting from the exposure. So lower discontent, which is good. Encourage him to support charitable government policies, and he becomes humble, or suggest that he continue working directly with the poor and become compassionate. I mean, neither of these are really things that you would want a general to have, but let's go for, I guess, charisma helps with the defense, whereas wisdom helps with the crit. Let's go for humble. And as I usually do, I'll do the food boost. This is a little bit less critical, but I'm going to lose it if I don't claim it. So, and like I said, in the case of this scenario, there's a slight advantage to picking the bonuses just because they don't have that technology penalty. Olives. A sudden glut of olive oil in Carthage presents several opportunities. The army could make use of it for military applications, learned men could investigate additional ways to manipulate it, or we could simply allow the citizens of Carthage to enjoy the oil themselves. So, make the army a well-oiled machine, lubricate the minds of our researchers, or let the people use it as they will. We will go for the research. Again, actually, it's partly just because I don't really need the stockpile for training. What I need is the actual values of training. But let's take a look here. So the game's still recommending trapping, and I'm slightly inclined to agree. One thing, though, is I do want to think a bit about how I'm going to get my big goal. So originally we were going to focus on forestry. But what I need now are 2 laws in 30 years. I also need 3 biremes. So labor force is going to lead to navigation. On the other hand, trapping is going to give me a camp. In this case, because it's only 2 years, I'm going to do trapping. And it's specifically because of the camps, which will help me get orders. Otherwise, I would have gone for labor force, which would both put me on the path to a law as well as ships. But that was my kettle. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I'm hoping that's the last interruption. It comes to your attention that Iboham has excelled in his tactics training, winning numerous commendations from officers. Iboham is clearly taken to his studies. It is time he chose a vocation, so he can become a commander. Now, if I hold shift, so... Okay, and if he becomes a tactician... I think I'm going to go for battlefield leadership here, so that makes him a commander. And we can still do a tutoring. Oligarch Malchus of Carthage has converted to Carthaginian paganism. Odur the Builder has converted to Carthaginian paganism, and Prince Bomlacar is now old enough to be tutored by courtiers. Time passes quickly. Prince Bomlacar is growing up fast and eager to learn. How would you like to educate them? So this is the heir. So philosophy, if I want to go, if I want to go for the wisdom, politics, if I want to improve my civics, commerce if I want to boost the cash. Politics and philosophy are the two big appeals to me right now. I think I'm going to do philosophy to try and overcome some of the challenges from the slow research rate. But I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that, to be honest. Okay, the Shrine of Tanit. So that gives bonuses for adjacent resources. It would seem to me I would want to build that here. Even though it does remove the trees. Now we also get to pick... all right, more production. So I do want to be building quarries in each city. The question is, like, where exactly, though? I'm just going to check something really quick. Okay, cool. I'm going to build a mine here, so that also helps me remove the scrub. Oop. And the idea here is I can build the third mine right in this spot. Okay, let's get that tutoring in. So Dido I want anyway because she can potentially grant wisdom. If you just kind of notice the probabilities, right? So you've got a 28.5% chance to improve wisdom, 25.9% to increase discipline, which are two skills that I would like to see move up. It's not that I dislike charisma or courage, it's just not quite as important to me. I'm also curious for Hadrentum. It's like... Right, okay. We'll repair the damage first. Okay, I'll move the warrior first. I'm actually a little wary of whether I want to leave the city undefended. I think we're just going to keep him in place. And... I don't want to get too reckless with my training, but... Alright, now, the game's recommending spoked wheel for 10 years. That's too long to wait for... that's too long to wait to get access to the tree. So... Again, the priorities right now, I want 2 laws, I want 3 biremes, I want 4 cities, 500 stone. So, and to issue the decree. Decree is going to be dealt with. In fact, I think we just finished the decree, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the stone we're not going to get from these. So really what I want to be working on is things that are aligned with getting me laws. So let's go back to... We'll go back to the window here. So none of these directly get me laws. Now, military drill is tempting because it will allow me to build barracks in my cities, which will mean that military units come a little bit easier. It will also potentially allow me to get steel. Okay, yeah, we do have iron working, so that's fine. What are my other options? So we'll say no spoked wheel for now. Polis will potentially grant forestry, which is definitely one that I want to pursue. Drama I want for the music, but again, it's a hard one for me to, although the free settler is tempting. Yeah, so honestly, military drill and polis are the two are the two trickier ones for me to pick. I think I'm actually going to go for military drill, and this is just for the barracks more than anything. Go. Okay, decree issued. As desired by the Didonian family, we have issued a decree condemning the hostilities visited upon us by the warlords of the Libyan tribes. Excellent. We are on our way to becoming a respected nation. We've completed the goal. Great achievers. A group of talented commoners have been brought before the court to be recognized for their achievements. With a small investment, we may offer one person the chance to be raised to the status of nobility. Whom shall we choose? The infantry captain, where we'll gain a court soldier. The gem trader, we'll gain another merchant, or we cannot afford to pay that much. Infantry captain. A new court soldier, Aristapal, has joined the court. Her experience in matters of war will help keep Carthage safe. So let's just see what happens to our training. Nothing, apparently. Land dispute. The Barcid and Didonian families have engaged in a heated land dispute. The Barcids claim that they have an ancestral right to a particularly productive Didonian estate, but the Didonians deny the claims. Whose side shall we take? We must respect the ancestral claim of the Barcids. The Didonians have made the land their own. Do nothing but watch for developments, or the land should belong to me. So this comes back to Vanguard Master's question. So there aren't necessarily any good answers here, right? In each of these circumstances, we are going to see some consequences. So, for instance, we could say, okay, we respect the ancestral claim of the Barcids. Well, it's never a good thing to have a family unhappy with you. That's probably the simplest that I could put it. So you could say the Didonians have made the land their own. So in one sense, you can kind of put the first two in the same category, which is to say, I'm going to make somebody upset with me. So one way that you could say, and this is, so one thing that's kind of interesting to work with is to say, it's like, okay, well, we're going to play a video game. You say, well, this is just a game, right? Maybe decisions are not like that in the real world. And it's like, absolutely it is. So in Canada, we've got a first past the post system. So a lot of people will complain about that in terms of it. So like one thing they'll say, well, it encourages strategic voting. It's like, but have we established that strategic voting is necessarily a bad thing? There's always a set of assumptions that you go in with that maybe you're, may need to be examined. But you'll keep your complaints to yourself. Well, I mean, I think the thing is that it's kind of a well-established result that there is no electoral system that will satisfy a set of very common... It's Kenneth Arrow who found this, actually. There is no system that would satisfy a set of very common sense kind of like properties that you'd find. I think it's called social choice theory. I'm not sure. Arrow was an economist. I'm pretty sure that was one of the things he got his Nobel for. But honestly, Arrow is good enough that like everything he did was probably worth the Nobel. But I mean, the example that I'll give you is that in Canada, we're currently in a minority parliament, which means that you need to appeal to at least one of the other parties, or at least a subset of one of the other parties, on confidence motions. Otherwise, the country goes back to the polls. And in fact, it's also true that even when you are governing, you can't afford to just say, well, we ignore the people, we're in a majority, so we just ignore everyone else. There are other things that other parties can do. If you are in a country which has something like proportional representation or similar systems, it's not necessarily that you have majorities. It's not that majorities are impossible, but generally what will happen is you will have these coalitions. So you have a bit more of a fragmented sort of parliament or legislative body, but you kind of cobble together these groups of people, and that's how you get things done. And in the end, admittedly, this is a game that has boiled this fairly complicated real-world phenomena down to a few numbers. But yes, of course, a government, trying to decide whether or not is going to be able to govern, beyond the next week, is going to say, this group of people really like us and they have nowhere else to go if we annoy them. And this other group of people legitimately may go and side with our opponents if we don't play ball. And that is how laws get passed. So, I think we talked a little bit before about Team of Rivals and how that probably has done a lot of damage to Washington, which is a shame because it's, by all rights, a very good book. But again, people wanting to take up the mantle of Lincoln who maybe do not have Lincoln's political genius. But this is a great example of where, there's a view. Essentially, I just kind of wanted to come back to Vanguard Master's original question and just sort of consider some of the premises behind it, which is the idea that sometimes and it's not to suggest that role-playing isn't this, but it's maybe to distinguish the types of role-playing that you can do. So in the case of the Elder Scrolls, it's the idea that role-playing is anything that you want to be, you can become it. Whereas in this case, I really am a ruler sitting down, having to deal with the tough business of being a ruler, like having to make decisions. I've got two very influential families who are squabbling over something and I need to make a decision. Or, I could kick the can down the road, watch for developments and see if something more severe happens in the future. I'm actually going to do this. I kind of want to see what happens, but I don't necessarily I don't think it's a good idea to just ignore a problem like that. I think generally you want to be decisive, and under normal circumstances, I would have sided with the Barkids. Okay, let's move up. I don't think I can add a general at this point, so. We got to go back to Athens where all the citizens gather around a big rock and the ones that yell the loudest win. Yeah, or we just put people's names on pottery and say, all right, you got to go. You were playing Endless Space 2 a while back and you realized a lot of the things that our governments do that you criticize end up being the things that you do in games to be able to govern your people and planets. Yeah, it's like... The thing is that, like, we all have our roles to play, right? Like, I, as a citizen, do not sit down and say, well, government's hard, I guess I should give them a break. Like, no, if the government did something that you object to, you can and should get mad about it, and let your displeasure be known. That's how things change. But the other side of that is that, like, it is very easy at times to sort of see governments as just these giant machines that always do bad things. Like, in the end, there's people in these systems. They're making decisions. They and some of them will be, more or less good. So, with that in mind, you do, like, there is sometimes some value in just kind of taking that perspective and say, like, okay, what is the alternative? Like, what's the different path that I would maybe like to see as maybe an example that I would take. And those sometimes become harder. Because, like, I can remember with we'll say the incumbent government. I had a friend who was, like, really insistent on the fact that because they strategically didn't show up to the House of Commons on this one particular vote, allegedly about, like, pharmacare or something like that. And they actually even weren't that clear as to what the legislation was, so it may not have even been real legislation. But it was sort of like, I will never vote for that party as a result. And I was sort of like, okay, but someone's going to form the government, right? And I know you don't like the other two alternatives. So, like, does this mean you're not voting? It's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, who are you? Like, like, if this is your, like, you cannot do one thing I'm upset by, I don't see like beyond maybe some strange independent candidate, I'm really not sure like how you're going to be voting with this set of priorities. So, again, it's mostly just kind of comes down to a question in terms of being somewhat realistic in terms of our expectations or our plans. I don't know. Maybe I'm not saying it properly, but I will conveniently sidestep the issue, and we will go for a rancher for starters so I can get those extra orders. And so I can make people like me, and I probably should have been doing this a bit earlier. So if we can get Birkont the Eloquent. So 150 is not a lot to spend to make people like me. I also feel like we should be doing some more conversions, so let's get the head of the Barkid family to convert. I should have seen that coming. Ishpaki has tutored Duke Iboam, improving his wisdom. Duke Iboam has +1 wisdom. Dido the scientist has died. Areshbal the soldier is converted to Carthaginian paganism, and the Didonian family is converted to Carthaginian paganism, which I kind of thought had already happened, but... The court mourns. Today we grieve the death of Dido the scientist, a member of the Carthaginian court. Her spirit will be venerated, and her deeds will be remembered. She's 42. She's not that old. She served us well. Good news. In a surprise piece of news, you receive an update from your son, Prince Bumilcar. Academy scholars respect him, and the other students compete to befriend him. At the moment, Bumilcar is thriving. So we could encourage him to focus on scholarship, or it is healthy for him to seek friends and fellowship. Now, affable's kind of nice because traditionally I've always put the ruler in the capital city, and so being able to gain growth per culture level is actually a pretty decent improvement. But I'm going to go for the raw points in terms of wisdom. So I originally would have healed up. I'm going to risk it. This unit might have to run really quick, though. Not a lot of orders left, but... I'm going to make the Barkid Explorer my higher priority, and that's just because it's a bit closer to the action. Yeah, we can sneak some more. Sneak some camels has a slightly different meaning now in the modern day. Okay, so they're reasonably good at defending themselves. The intercession mission of Oligarch Hasdrubal Hadrumentum to Birko the Eloquent has led to an event. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger has successfully converted Oligarch Hasdrubal of Hadrumentum to a religion, and the Barkid family has converted to Carthaginian paganism. Hasdrubal's greed knows no bounds. The intercession went without a problem, and Birko the Eloquent has been swayed to appreciate you more, but now Oligarch Hasdrubal of Hadrumentum has started sending messages asking for more payment for his services. Will you indulge this average? Agree his services were worth it, refuse, he's already been paid enough, or demand back what was paid before? I can't really... he looks very smug. In this case, I kind of have to pay because I do not want to have the head of a family trying to undermine me. Okay, so I'm going to rush these guys in. I'll add a general while I can. Now, okay, so he's already the general. So what I was just thinking here was, can I do any intercessions that will result in any intercessions that'll sort of result in better performance? I should probably work on kind of improving relations with Hannibal the Pious. Let's start by getting a religious conversion here. And yeah, there we go. So I'm sending the head of the family to bring Hannibal onto my side, and then I'm converting Birko to religion to make them like me even more. Okay, so I think I'm actually going to put that militia to sleep. Let's go for a familiar face. You hardly recognize the young man who returns from training. Duke Iboham the Humble has spent the last several years studying to become a useful member of the court, and he is now ready to serve. We should celebrate the occasion. So hold a military parade and training exercises, or no celebrations. Give him a court's clerical work, which will give him additional discipline. All right. So we're still going to do the usual grab resources as we can approach, but I still want to get some exploration in. Okay, a little worrying, but Ashtonat has converted to Carthaginian paganism. Hannibal the Pious has converted to Carthaginian paganism. Good news all around. I'm a little worried about the health of this unit, but I have at least one turn before they get into trouble. Now, this is not the smartest attack that I can do because it's going across a river, but it's what I can do at the moment, so... And frankly, anything I can do to try and make life a little bit easier for this unit is good. Okay. Kind of want to prioritize this work first. Now, does this get... Yep, so this is going to complete the little triangle. Now, I'm very tempted to build a quarry here because of the bonuses. But I'm even more tempted to build the camp. I can build the quarry here, though. Now, I'm not going to be able to build a nice little triangle on this one. Actually, it would have been smarter for me to build the shrine over here now that I think of it, but it's a little late to change. Harvesting marble gets me more stone, so that's a nice one. The other thing I can do if I really get in trouble, I can just buy the stone that I need, but that's really not the way to go about it. All right, 2 tutor missions have led to an event. We've got a conversion. All right, and Duke Iboham follows a strict regime, never taking the easy way if it is not the best way. He's gained discipline. One day during lessons with his tutor, Bomilcar hears a clamor beyond the palace walls. A group of urchins chase a terrified cat along the street, laughing and striking it with sticks. Ishpaki notices his pupil's interest and challenges him to intervene. What does the royal tutor advise? Attack the boys and drive them away. Distract the boys with a humorous story. Wait until it's safe and nurse the cat back to health. Or do nothing. Urchins always chase cats, which will give us additional wisdom. So, excuse me, here's an example where I actually feel a little more like, so one, from a role-playing / me kind of point of view, I actually don't like the idea of not intervening when people are chasing the cat. Like, yes, it's absolutely right that the urchins will always chase cats. But I don't know. I feel kind of bad about it. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't crush insects anymore. I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to that sort of stuff. So the other thing is there can be some benefits in terms of the city as far as having some of these other traits. So discipline will help as far as the overall income for the empire, which will be important to maintain. And charisma is also very useful, particularly as a head of state. So I think in this case we will distract the boys, but I do want to see some other paths that might get me some income. Scrolls and maps litter the palace floors as Iboham studies to advance his knowledge of military tactics. His tutor, Arishtabal, wants to know what direction she should take in shaping the young tactician's mind. The art of war takes a lifetime to master, and lessons learned now will lay the foundation for the kind of leader Iboham becomes. So he should study the leadership of great generals. He'll become humble and courageous, or he should memorize combat drills and tactics. Nope, would definitely go in for the courage. Prince Bomilcar has been sneaking off into the wild after class each day, growing ever more inspired by nature. What advice should we give to this budding naturalist? Never let hill, beast, weather, or man stop you. And he becomes brave. Or nature leaves me speechless, and we get yet another humble ruler. Or there are many other mysteries to see in the world, and they become exploring. I will say nature leaves me speechless. Now, this unit is capable of killing my infantry, so I'm going to run them back to the woods. Now, because of this character's ability, I'm actually able to heal. Actually, now that I think of it, so if I move them back and I just heal here, that keeps them from being able to... That keeps them from death. Actually, there's one other thing I want to try. So I can move around the edge here, get a better attack. Yeah, and then we take the city. Hasdrubal is a general of the warrior. Actually, sorry, there's one slightly different. This is totally me being a jerk. My son gets the glory. Okay, so I don't plan on moving on the Numidians, so I'm going to want to move my warriors down kind of to this area. The settler will show up in three turns. The good news here is that I'm going to be able to occupy this city site with this warrior unit and let them heal up. So this is kind of, mostly it's going to resolve itself, I think. In the meantime, let's keep exploring. Now, once I do start tangling with the Libyans, they are going to start murdering my scouts. So I want to be careful of when I actually start being aggressive. I'm going to slightly adjust that because I did not realize we had another tutoring opportunity. And we can do another intercession. I'm assuming... Yeah, we've already done some of this. So maybe as a next best, let's make sure that all my generals follow the same religion. Nope, I don't have the orders for that. Never mind. Paying our dues, the time has come again for Carthage to send tribute to Tyre. What shall our next shipment consist of? Finest produce, which we're in a little bit of a better state for. Money's always useful, or... yeah, I think we'll just keep sending the money. So we can get a free promotion. So let's go for... we're going to be facing down cavalry. So let's go... actually, the other temptation is urban. So I have to be a little more careful on where I position my units, but I think this will help me in fighting for those spaces against the Libyans. Okay, so I just have my scouts to move now. Okay, now labor force is probably my highest priority right now. So the reason for this is labor force will lead to navigation. Navigation leads to biremes, which means that it's most aligned with one of my main goals here. Also, we want to adopt 2 laws within 22 years. So we do get the option between slavery and freedom, and then that will just mean that we have to pick another law when the time comes. So labor force it is. And let's pick what we want to build. So this is a quarry. It's also a quarry now. Again, priority being stone. Vicious rumors. Unsurprisingly, 2 of your vassal families are squabbling. The Barcid family accuses the Didonians of spreading vicious rumors about them. When confronted, the Didonian elders claim to know nothing about such slander. Each family comes to you with a gift asking for support. What do we tell them? We tell them we're a ruler and we do not waste our time with such nonsense. So we could side with the Barcids for money. We could side with the Didonians for iron, which is actually very useful for us. Take the gifts but support neither family, or I wish to stay out of these squabbles. I'm taking both. Filthy animals. Several days after shepherding a group of wild goats to the palace, the goatherd falls ill. Various members of his family also get sick. It seems the goats have brought disease with them. Now Amatbal exhibits similar systems. We should act fast to contain the potential outbreak. The cooks should dispose of all the meat in the kitchens. Amatbal shall remain isolated, become ill, miserable, or robust, or must study the sickness and to learn all that we can in exchange for some pretty devastating consequences. Let's dispose of all the meat in the kitchens. A gift is a gift, freely given with nothing expected in return. I like the way you're thinking. Okay, too far from a friendly city, so that's not helpful enough. And we're out of things to do. But the science! How you doing, Aperture Science? Ishpaki, the Libyan, has tutored Prince Bomlakar, improving his discipline. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger has successfully converted Duke Iboam the Humble to her religion. Now that Prince Bomilcar has completed his study of philosophy, how shall he contribute to the court? So he can become a zealot or a judge. I think we're going to go for a judge. As you grow older, you begin to recognize the advantages of age and experience. You have brought a lifetime of wisdom to bear on the destiny of this nation. Our ministers believe that your reign makes a strong case for changing the law so that the right of succession belongs to the oldest living relative. Of course, such a shift may offend the current heir, Prince Bomilcar. So we could change free law seniority or keep the current succession. Yeah, we'll keep. So that explains why the order was different. We'll keep the current succession, especially because I like the extra legitimacy. Okay, so we're going to move the settlers as far as we can. Let's deal with the healing first. Okay, so we've got our little trio of pastures. I want to try... Ugh. How about building one of those nice barracks? So I can't recall... Okay, so garrisons get some bonuses there. I think I'm going to settle for a barracks in this case, in this location. Now, there's a number of things that I can do. I've got 2 free citizens. I also have 2 discontent, so I could do a festival. Let's start with a stonecutter. Let's go for the culture from the dyes for starters. I probably also want to be training some more warriors and slingers and such, but I'm going to start with these. Let's take a look. Marriages are probably not a bad idea to consider too. Figure one family marriage to each of the major families. I probably should have done this earlier, but both are... how old is... 23, it's young enough. I'm going to do some influence missions as well. That took up a lot of my orders. Now that's going to have some consequences as far as my exploration. But I'm not going to get too torn up about it. Alright, reports of a tribal raid from a Libyan outpost near Hadramentum. Duke Iboham the Humble, being superstitious, believes in many strange and mysterious things, and Otir the Builder has died. It has been months of negotiations with the Barkids, but your skills as a diplomat have secured the finest of matches for Duke Iboham the Humble. Do either of the final 2 Barkid suitors meet your standards? So you may marry Zohar, which is wisdom, courage. The dowry will give us an extra order. And they're a zealot. Or I think these stats overall are better. So Fairuz is the best choice. And a new marriage proposal from the Didonians has arrived for your son, Prince Bomilcar. What is our answer? So, Amatbal the Younger, he's got high wisdom, but a lack of courage. That will cost us in the next generation. Or Ashtart the Shield Bearer, which gives us pure courage. I also note the... So this is also gay, so minus 50% chance a year to have children. That's actually a big problem, given that we need to have a... we do actually need to have a proper line of succession. So I think we will go for less risk and take Ashtart the Shield Bearer. Infrastructure. As the growing nation attracts more immigrants, both Phoenicians and from other cultures, as the growing nation attracts more immigrants, both Phoenicians and from other cultures, as the bountiful harvests of food encourage families to have large numbers of children, the growing horde of citizens and laborers requires more infrastructure to be built. The court is convened to discuss the matter of which infrastructure need should be chosen as the nation's top priority for new construction. So we could build 3 garrisons, or we could adopt the law constitution. Now, what does it take to get constitution? Okay, it requires sovereignty. Sovereignty requires aristocracy and rhetoric. We have neither of those. So I actually think the garrisons are probably the easier... Well, hang on. Requires 1 active law. Okay, we will be able to achieve that in 4 years. So yes, we'll build 3 garrisons within 40 turns. Okay, so we need to pick our 3rd family. So we've got the Barkids, we've got the Didonians. So I'm inclined for the Magonids, so we can claim the gems here. So that means we have to give up the traders, but that's life. I'm gonna get my warriors in place for starters. Okay, we finished the rancher. So again, the question would be, do I want to try and produce some more military units while I have the opportunity, or are there other priorities for the city right now? I suppose the trapper gives me the extra orders, right? So I'm a little reluctant to do this, but ooh, especially because it takes 8 years. A stonecutter would be a bit better for giving me the... Yeah, I'm going to start with the stonecutter, just so I can get the extra civics. Okay. Hippo Regis, which is our new city. So it looks like we've got a worker already. I think I'm actually going to build another worker, though. It seems a little silly, but hopefully it will make sense in a little while. All right. So it wants me to build stone here. I mean, it's not a terrible choice. I do need to improve my military, though. So let's get our barracks down. Now, this unit... Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this unit over to the side. I'm eventually going to move the militia to take care of Hippo Regius. But we're out of orders this turn. There's the raiders. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger has successfully converted Prince Bomilcar to her religion. You've successfully exerted your influence upon Birko the Eloquent. Oligarch Hazardbal of Hadrumentum has successfully interceded on my behalf. Tugiboham the Humble has an illegitimate son, Carle. You just got married, dude! And Duke Bomilcar, your son, and Duchess Consort Ashtart have given birth to a son, Prince Bostar. Well, I mean, at least this is the, like... This is the line that we're actually going to follow. So Hazardbal is the general of the warrior. Let's make them a besieger. Okay, we just have the scouts to work now, so... Pretty much the same story this time around, just finding new locations for one and then cleaning up whatever we haven't explored for the other. Okay, and as always, we'll try and get the conversions done. That wasn't quite the order in which I wanted to do it, but it still worked. Okay, so this unit's going to take care of the quarry. Probably generating a little more stone than we need, but I'm not going to complain about that till we have our objective. Hidden jewels. Our explorers discover a cache of jewels hidden deep in the abandoned ruins. Their orders were to explore the lands. Would you rather they exploit this discovery instead? Keep the jewels but continue exploring, or the treasury would be grateful if we found more jewels. That's a fifth of my treasury to get a resource I already have lots of, but honestly, I think this is kind of worth it. I think you know which one you'd pick. That was probably for a previous event, but I'm assuming it would be the ultimate pacifist choice, right? You're a big old softy like me. Okay, so now may not be a bad time to do just a quick review of where we are in the session. So I'm not quite sure where we got. It says build 3 garrisons. I'm actually not that sure where we got our first garrison from, but right now I'm slowly working my way towards the 500 stone. Now I'm sort of defeating that as well by building certain buildings. But, you know, again, I don't want to completely abandon the, running the nation. We've basically got all of the low-hanging fruit as far as locations for us to sort of take over. So the next thing that I need to worry about are the nomad skirmishers, and that's going to mean that there's some war. Now, the first thing that I probably want to do is make sure that the... first of all, I definitely need to make sure that I've got the numbers to handle the Libyans. They've got 3 cavalry. I currently have 2 warriors. So I'm certainly not in a position to be able to... I'm not really in a position to be able to fight them. Now, it is worth remembering, I think this might have been what the dummy text was supposed to say. Carthage's special ability is that you can hire mercenaries. In fact, let's take a second here and see if there's... I think we'll go under Nations, Carthage... Tribal mercenary units can be hired from tribes by Carthage and nations by nations with orator leaders. The Price is determined by the strength of the unit, their tribe's opinion of you, and the number of mercenaries recruited so far. Other mercenaries can be hired from events. Mercenaries have a 50% higher percent consumption costs and no associated families. So, like, mercenaries are not, they're not like a get out of jail free card, but holy smokes, is it going to be a lot easier for me to deal with the Libyan. Like, eventually, I'm going to have to go to war at some point. Now, I'm maybe a little surprised that we're on such good terms with the Libyans because they did start by threatening me. I mean, maybe the better call would be to go after the Numidians. I suppose there's a question. Well, I mean, there's marble here. Okay, let's maybe just take a minute to stop and smell the roses. So what do I get if I go after the Libyans, and what do I get if I go after the Numidians? The Libyans have been the only ones to send raiding parties on me, so theoretically there would be an end to the raids. Now, against the Numidians, I would sort of have two fronts to defend. I'd have to deal with this area, and then I'd also have to deal with this area. Whereas with the Libyans, it's a little bit more of sort of a long snake to knock them back. And the funny thing is that it's actually cheaper to hire the Libyan mercenaries right now. So again, we're definitely not starting the war yet. But it is one of these cases where after, like, once I feel like I'm in a position, I'm going to hire up the units that I can, and then we'll sort of make our move. In any case, I don't think there's anything I can do. It's a bit of a shame to see so many orders sitting idle, but them's the breaks. You've successfully exerted your influence upon oligarch Osmalek the Witty, but appear weak in the process. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger has successfully converted Osmalek. Okay, so we lost 2 legitimacy for trying to win over this new family head. Oligarch Hasdrubal, the general of the warriors, died on the field. Fortifying. And Oligarch Birko the Eloquent is head of the Barkid family. So it's actually quite good we invested in bringing her on side. And the Maganoid family has converted to Carthaginian paganism. So we'll pick a new general. I suppose the Queen Consort is the best candidate. Well, not entirely. Yasmin is your wife, so extra wisdom, courage, discipline. Discipline will be really good for cash. I think I'm going to keep going on the wisdom path. Okay, so we have our barracks. We're not quite at the point where we can build the... Not quite at the point where we can build the garrison yet, but that's coming. I think I'll preserve this for lumber. But I can build a mine here. Oh, just the scouts. Okay. So here I'm really just looking for the edge of the map, and I think we just found it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to keep a scout here, and they're going to sleep. I'm just going to keep the scout there for now, but there are other things. I don't know. I have some thoughts in terms of how I'm going to handle this. All right, now why don't you like me? Okay. I'm still going to do as many conversions as I can. So let's start with members of the court. Actually... Again, we have the wealth, we have the opportunity. I'm going to try and bring some harmony into the nation. Okay, so they did wind up blowing up the nets. Reports of a tribal raid from a Libyan outpost near Hadramentum. Now, I don't know if that's the same one that we were talking about or if this is a new one. So, again, we'll take a look at the tech tree. This is a tricky one, actually, because I don't really think we need any of these. Odeon will be good for happiness, and it will give me the music. So to a certain extent, Spoked Wheel is tempting because of the range that the cavalry will give me, but I'm not really sure that's a good enough reason. Steel's actually a little more aligned with stronger units. Actually, that might be reason enough for me to pursue it. So, drama, I mean, the Odeon's nice. It's recommending Spoked Wheel, probably because of the Chancellor. Spoked Wheel tech is useful on multiple fronts. It allows you to appoint a Chancellor, which can aid in managing families and cities through various missions. It also unlocks the Chariot, the first mounted unit in any city with horses. These fast units are good at flanking and have the rout ability, allowing them to attack again if they kill an enemy unit in combat, which is a very strong ability. But if I want force, the Axeman is the way to go. Excuse me. Clearly, a polearm would be better, but I don't think I have that option. So... Oh, hang on. This isn't even a choice. Drama lets me draw faster. Excuse me. Malchus is you and Governor of Carthage. Let's boost the charisma. Okay, so we've got our mine. Let's build the nets next. Okay, now I'm trying to figure out how I want to start buying up the Libyan units. So I'm going to build another warrior. I think we'll just leave it there. Slavery or freedom? Carthage is in need of a decision regarding its labor force. Some in court support a system of slavery, while others wish to keep freedom a virtue. So we will keep slaves, so that will increase discontent in the cities, but our mines and quarries will get plus 20% output. Our subjects will be free, which will give us additional science, and urban specialists... the capital city gets plus 2 culture. Actually, that doesn't really seem to be a choice here. I kind of feel like culture and science are very strong. So there's freedom. Influential families of Hadramentum have arrived in the capital seeking advice from Ishpakti the Libyan. They wish to declare Hadramentum a merchant town community focused on providing goods and services to surrounding areas. This would increase the city's economic growth but reduce its role as a cultural hub. Ishpakti the Libyan seems taken with the idea. So it's not that big of a reduction in civics, or all cities must follow the same laws. Very tempting for legitimacy, but actually, you know what? Yeah, all cities must follow the same laws. So I think I'm going to wait till we achieve our stone goal before I try to mess around with the with hiring these different mercenaries. So many orders going unused. That'll change when we start fighting, though. You're now known as Malchus the Just. Okay, so exerted influence, we've converted. And there's no easy day in the life of Duke Iboam the Humble. He has gained discipline. A new court scholar, Hannah, has joined the court. Her curiosity and insight will aid Carthage in unraveling the mysteries of the world. Happy to have another scientist. So, first things first, we are going to take out these raiders. Now, I don't think the militia doesn't have enough to take out this the skirmisher unit, so we're actually going to move up. Give them a poke here. Looks like we get to build another quarry if I want. You know what? I'm a bit quarry obsessed now. Okay, we finished the barracks, so I don't think it will hurt to start building farms. Oh, but we don't have the wood for a farm. Okay, I should have thought that through. I guess I did say I was going to have. I was going to have a unit to go cutting trees. So let's focus on that for a little bit. Okay. I don't think it would hurt to have another military unit, to be honest. Immigrants. A rabble of barbarian refugees have settled outside the gates of Hadrumentum. They request our aid and sanctuary. So this is a culture event, so we can let them settle and we get an extra citizen or employ them as scouts. We don't really need more scouts, so... Dummy. Alright. Also, I can build... Yes, I can build a garrison, but it requires a lot of stone, so we're going to go cutting trees for a bit. And let's get some more conversions done. This gets me a little extra training. It costs a bit more than 2 turns of training or of civics generation. Sorry, it costs a little under 2 turns of civics generation. So I don't want to do rally the troops too much, but I think it would be nice to just give myself a little more flexibility. We have dyes. I think. Oh yes, okay. We do have. Actually, the Meganids are going to be really happy because we can give them both things that they want. All right, we've completed the goal. Stockpile 500 stone. That's going to mean that we start building some more shrines. Afflicted by nigh constant vomiting and diarrhea, King Malchus the Just is severely ill. Duke Iboam the Humble follows a strict regimen, never taking it easy. And Bomlikar does the same, so discipline for all. With an ample reserve of stone, Hippo Regius is able to erect a grand shrine of Melkart. The spiritual future of Hippo Regius is assured, as the citizens will worship Melkart, the Lord of Tyre, whose blessings will keep our connection to Tyre eternal, and whose strength will keep Carthage safe. Not quite the effect I was expecting, but I'm happy for it. Alright, so let's... Alright, so this is a general. I'm just going to go for the extra courage in this case. And I did say I was going to start hiring. So what do these things cost me? Oh, does it not say what the... Anyway, the number's positive right now, so... so 12, 15, 41. Suspicious. So I might even just go so far as to declare war right away if I've really worked their numbers down. Okay, Hippo Regius, I'm going to start with a miner just because that's going to give me a chance to gift some resources. I'm going to get the workers to work first. Okay, so we've got a trio of mines taken care of. I'm going to leave this open for forestry. But I think I'll... Nuts. Those borders are a bit weird. Okay. Wait a minute. I really can't build? Why can't I build anything here? Oh, it's probably because I think it's because I've used up my whole move. Well, we can still cut the scrub. Okay, I wanted to build a shrine here. No, sorry, I wanted to build a garrison first. But I'm going to use up... Okay, yeah, I'm going to use up all the orders no matter what. So we'll at least move closer into the territory, but... there's a little bit of a scattered turn. I am completely fine with them. Oh, your doctors and diviners have warned you that the end is near. Time to get your affairs in order. Did you say that this is a scenario that is locked at 100 turns? Yes, I actually believe that's true for the whole game. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger has successfully converted Amadalcart of Hadramentum to her religion. And you've rallied the military, resulting in higher morale and discipline. At the announcement of the heir's birth, celebrations erupt in the capital of Carthage. People gather in the streets to toast Princess Thubath and revel in the hope of a bright future. My legacy has been secured. The time has come again for Carthage to send tribute to Tyre. What shall our next shipment consist of? So, finest produce. Iron will help them defend. Money is always useful, but I actually need it. Let's send them food this time. So again, this is the last turn. Now, if I just had... Oh my goodness. I'm really curious to see what happens now. So this may devastate our... This may actually devastate our ability to make war. Sorry, one slight adjustment here. Let's promote. Okay, can I build a garrison here? No. So just remembering that we need 3 garrisons to fulfill the requirement. Also, how many? 2 of 5 years. Yikes. Okay. Let's reconsider that then. Let's repair the nets. And then we'll take care of the next. Okay, we'll build a quarry here. Oh, let me build the garrison right away. Am I okay with it being here, though? Because, like, normally I'd want to build some mines and all of that. Well, I mean, the same argument can be made for just about anything. Okay, so this... Alright, so the original plan was to build a road to the capital, but it looks like we're already connected, so I'm going to change my mind as far as my priorities. So we'll get the culture, that's always nice to have. We'll heal up our people. Militia can go... Well, we'll worry about moving the militia later. Right now, I want to try and take as many Libyan units as I can. Yeah, so I'm not quite ready to declare war yet, but this is definitely going to be a big bonus. Yeah, we're probably going to have a much easier time taking out the bad guys. Okay. Who else should we convert? I think that's it. Oh, actually, sorry. We're going to move the militia back to the city. Reports of a tribal raid from a Numidian outpost near Hadramentum. All right, so not exactly what I want to deal with right now, but... So I can get a free settler. Aristocracy will eventually lead to monasticism. I can live without aristocracy as long as I get laws somewhere else. I'll get that through navigation. So free settler is actually a good choice here because it gives me a redraw after 2 years. Moving on. Let's get that garrison up. Okay, so I didn't want to spend the turn this way, but we are going to need to defend our own territory first. I thought it said I was going to die. Alright, well, I'm not going to complain about having an extra... time to work on the invaders. I think the bigger question right now is, do I like really want to kick things off with the Libyans? I feel like I can almost get away with it, but not entirely. Prince of Priests, Garth Emissary from the Numidians brings us a warning. Dozens of Numidian men have banded together and have prepared to raid Carthaginian lands. Several Numidian warlords respect Carthage due to our previous peaceful dealings. These warlords lack the influence to stop the raid. We have to prepare to defend against the raid unless the raiders can somehow be convinced to embark on an adventure elsewhere. 1 year's worth of money is money well spent in this case. The Numidians have approached the court with a marriage proposal for your royal self. It does not escape the court that such a match will be looked down on upon the people of Carthage. How would you like to respond? I am more worried about upsetting Yasmin. However, proceed with the preparations. Awesome, but no. Upsetting my people and my wife concerns me too much. I reject the offer. Daughters of Dido. Dido, the founder, remains an extremely popular figure amid the citizenry, but especially within the ranks of the wealthiest women of the capital, some of these women have begun to refer to Queen Dido as a goddess and to themselves as the daughters of Dido. Mothers teach the story of the oxhide to every child. Plays have been written depicting this tradition, retelling the story of the founding of Carthage in the most dramatic fashion. A group of the daughters of Dido, known from the Magonid family, who are emigrating to Hippo Regius, demand that the crown open its coffers to fund the construction of an Odeon at their new home. They complain that stories of Dido may begin to fade from consciousness of the populace unless the plays are held for regular viewing. Strong leadership on this matter can ensure the preservation of traditional values. So we can pay to have an Odeon built in Hippo Regius, which will definitely strain the coffers, but I actually think it's good to have. So yeah, again, we come back to the question, is now the time to go after the Numidians? I think I'm going to skip it for now, and what I'm going to do instead is move the militia up. Is there nobody left to convert? That's wonderful. Oh, we've already got the... Okay, that's maybe less exciting. Man, you got some range. Queen Consort Yasmin the Younger has successfully converted Ishpaki the Libyan to her religion. Ishpaki the Libyan converts to Carthaginian paganism. King Malichus the Just, governor of Carthage, has died in office. The nation grieves the death of King Malchus the Just. During the funeral, Duke Bomilcar approaches you, the young heir Tubaleth. So I am currently playing as a 2-year-old. My daughter, Bomilcar, wraps you in a warm embrace. Tears flow from his eyes. We have many enemies. Please, darling, allow me to act as your regent and handle matters of state until you come of age. No, your grandfather wanted me to rule, not you. Or please take the throne, father. Duke Bomilcar seizes the throne of Carthage. Yes. King Malchus the Just has died. We meet his passing with hushed voices and heavy hearts. Prepare the way for Queen Thubath the New, heir to the throne of Carthage. Your coronation has been met with a wave of patriotic fervor as subjects from across the nation seek to serve the new ruler. How shall we harness this enthusiasm? Organize a labor corps to improve the lands for another worker. Now, this normally would be helpful for us, given that we have had... we've sort of had a problem where, like, we've got a lot of orders left, which generally means I don't have enough workers. But we're going to have a lot of, we're definitely going to have a lot of, we're going to have a lot of orders used when we go to war. So culture's kind of neat. Citizen is okay, but it's not the most important thing for me. I do like the idea of becoming prosperous. God, it's really tough. I think in this case I'll say organize a labor corps to improve lands. And King Malichus the Just has died in office. We will assign myself... Actually, you also have really good stats for this, so... Okay, we are about half an hour over, so the original plan was going to be to kind of kick off the war, so this is actually not a bad place for me to wrap up. So, oddly enough, the Numidians are kind of my new enemy. In fact, I can at least make a little bit of progress on... I gotta be careful about the damage this unit can take. Yeah, it's not going to be enough to kill the... Well, it might be with 2, but... But yeah, so I mean, the real question is going to come down to when do I want to start the war against the Libyans? Because that's definitely not something I can sort of unbottle. But I figured the sooner the better. The other question is, do I want to have all these units so spread out, or do I want to... Yeah. I don't know. I figure we can probably... I figure we'll be able to manage all of this. So the biggest worry I have is actually the Adopt 2 laws. So we've got 11 years to pull that off. We have the civics for it, but if I get unlucky in terms of some of my tech draws, that's going to be a hard one for me to achieve on time. Building 3 garrisons, we're more or less already there. So we've got 2 of 3, so that must mean the garrison... Yeah, the garrison in Hippo Regius has been built. Which means the one in Hadrumentum, so that one's going to be finished. Controlling 4 cities, so that's going to be why we go to war. That's going to be why we go to war with the Libyans. So that will... So this one's more or less taken care of. This one's more or less taken care of. So we can see ourselves as completing 7 goals. And then we'll have 5 more that we can try and complete. Now that's by turn 39, so I think we're doing rather well. I'm actually curious, is this on the Noble? Yeah, I'm doing much better than the Babylon playthrough. Mind you, the ability to buy units off of tribes is really helpful here. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here because 1, it's a new generation. 2, the fact that we're sort of like we're just kind of on the eve of another on the eve of a war. And we're actually rather well positioned for it, right? Because we're going to get 2 new warriors in 3 turns. 2 for 1, 3 for the second. We've just bought a bunch of cavalry. So the plan's going to be that we just rebuild our treasury over time. Once we've sort of taken out the Libyans, there's really nothing that can stop us from moving on the Numidians afterwards. The only thing I want to do is make sure that I'm capable of at least defending Hippo Regius while we focus on, on these settlements, or alternatively that we go for a big hit here. The problem that I have with a strategy that involves taking out sort of like going through the Cork Oak Forest, first of all, it's going to take us a long time to do that kind of movement. And then number 2, like right now, they can move here or here. If I do an approach that takes sort of these 2 territories, then we sort of have this nice big front along like here, and that's considerably easier to manage than potentially getting picked off. So like right now, we've got 2 vulnerable cities. If we were to go start pursuing these, it's like, okay, so in addition to Hippo Regius, we've got kind of these new areas that we've conquered, vulnerable to... Basically, we're just kind of increasing the surface area that they can attack, and of course, they're going to be generating units out of all of these. So it's tempting to like buy this right away, but this will get expensive, and I don't quite need to take advantage of it yet. So, but yeah, we are going to go to war with the Libyans and basically use their own units against them. And yeah, I think other than Adopt 2 laws, so Construct 3 biremes is going to be a tough one to do just because I need tech for it, and I'm going to be focusing my tech on getting laws. But I'd say overall that is an achievable goal. Also, what were the... there's like a scenario... Right. So 6 for a bronze victory, 8 for a silver victory, and 10 for a gold victory. So there are 5 goals completed, 4 active, so there's 12 total goals, so I can afford to lose 2 of them. So if I fail Adopt 2 laws, I basically want to do everything because it's nice to just have that contingency. Anyways, though, I think this is quite a bit smoother than... the last couple of episodes. I'm really happy I went back to the scenario. It's not bad that we did the base game, but I definitely feel like it's going to be better. It's going to be better for me to sort of focus on these for the next little while. So I'm going to find somebody to host. I will just give a quick reminder. So barring another major internet outage in Canada, I will just share. So Wednesday, we're going to be back for more Brace Yourself games. I think we'll probably do Industries of Titan. And then Friday, it's my birthday. So I may stream at a weird hour, or I might do like streams over different points. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that I've been getting some feedback in terms of things that people would like to see. So if you like Old World, you can say, I'd like to see some more Old World. I was given the suggestion of doing... So I suggested some reading, and somebody suggested either H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe. And I actually found something that I think might be kind of fun to do in that light, but I am interested in hearing other recommendations that people might have for things to do. I can't necessarily promise to get through all of it, but I just figured, because traditionally whenever I've done like a birthday stream, it's always just been a chance for me to kind of cut loose and just do stuff I don't normally get a chance to do. And it's nice to give people a little bit of advance notice. I should mention that I was actually thinking of trying some like old, like well-known games which I haven't really spent a lot of time in. So the original Unreal was an example of that, and I may still give it a shot, right? But yeah, that's just a bit of an example in terms of where we've been, where we've been thinking. So if you have suggestions, you can mention them in the Discord. You can mention them on Twitter or in chat. But I figured giving people enough notice ahead of time hopefully will make that worthwhile. Also, thank you very much for watching. I hope it was worthwhile. I mean, I like Old World, and it generally seems to attract attention, but I know this time around it maybe didn't. So, we'll see. I definitely plan on continuing to, I kind of plan on continuing to play it for a bit, but if you have other feelings, let me know. I'm trying to think who I can host tonight. I know I've been hosting Outworld a lot, but he's also the one who's available. Let me just take a quick second here and see if there's any... Is anybody playing Industries of Titan? Okay. I am going to wind up hosting Outworld. I think he's doing Mortal Kombat 4 tonight, so I know that is not quite the expectation for a stream after Old World, but I'm a little limited in terms of options tonight. So, holy smokes, there's a lot more of you here than I thought there were. Sorry, Twitch was telling me lies in terms of the numbers. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. Again, if you like my stuff, I will be back Wednesday for Industries of Titan. If you like Old World, that is going to be available next Monday. And then on Friday, we're basically doing a little bit of everything. But I hope to see you again. And I'm going to start saying at the end of the episodes that you do this on YouTube a lot, but if you've not followed the channel, please consider doing so. Partly, one, because I'd like to grow, but number two, it gives me a chance to, gives you a chance to catch the stream again when I go live, because I have been struggling a little bit lately to try and get ready to go on time. But that's a mild call to action. Anyways, we're ready to host Outworld. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for watching. Vanguard Master, I'm sorry to hear about the Kickstarter, but thank you for sharing the status on it and your future plans, because I liked being able to talk about that. And best of luck with all of them. Please let us know what's going on, because I'm not always good at keeping up to date. But anyways, please enjoy Outworld stream. Tell them I said hi, and we'll see you in a couple days.